right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and Christopher Bell did not win today, so let's update that graphic as well. There we are. Alrighty. I do apologize for the delay, folks. We did have a little bit of audio issues here. Hopefully, let me know in the chat here if we're having anything like that still. Basically, we're trying some new equipment here this week, and it really, in the short term, it's let me down so far. So we went back to last week's setup, and we're going to try that as well. So hopefully, we're good to go, and we'll absolutely get into the discussions from here. So, alrighty. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show here this evening. This is Behind the Wall. I am Brock Beard from lastcar.info, and Denny Hamlin is unofficially your race winner today from the Pocono Raceway. A bit of a little controversy towards the end of the race between himself and Ross Chastain, to say the least. It ended up with Chastain with his car trashed and Denny Hamlin holding off Kyle Busch in victory lane today. Good here. Okay, excellent. That's good. So yeah, I think we had some duplication in the opening there, so I do apologize for that. Hopefully we'll get this straightened out here in the near future. Okay, so let me get my feet back under me here. Okay. Yes. So Denny Hamlin holds off Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch seemed like he was going to be the favorite to win, not just because of his past performance, but also M&M sponsoring this race. I think for all of the negative talk and his contract and what Joe Gibbs may or may not be doing last year, I think the celebrations that were going on at the track with Kyle Busch and Ernie Irvan and David Gilliland and a lot of the other past M&M's drivers, with the exception of Elliott Sadler, which was rather interesting. It's good to see that there was a lot of recognition for what M&M's has contributed to the sport. This is a sponsor that's not just pulling up its stakes and disappearing in an instant here. It's very much knowledgeable of the history they've had in the sport. It's unfortunate to see them go, regardless of how, if you're a Kyle Busch fan or not. They've certainly contributed a lot to the sport here for so long, and a lot of longtime sponsors are pretty rare these days. Unfortunately, becoming even more rare given everything that's been going on with all of these too. Uh-oh, we got no audio? That's not good. Let's see. Or are you pulling my chain, Beast of Metal? If you are, just let me know, man. I'm seeing the wavelengths here. This is the same problem. I was listening, I was talking and on this thing, and then it just said that it didn't have anything on there. It's fine. Okay, fantastic. But yeah, I think really with the, I know we're kind of doing things a little bit out of order here, but certainly the M&M celebration at the track I thought was really cool to see. I'm glad that we had actually they brought a lot of the old drivers back and showed that really for them it's just been a sponsor relationship, but kind of reminded me a little bit of what Winston did in the end of 2003 when they were recognizing some of the other past champions before they pulled out as the title sponsor for the series, because of course so much history they had experienced in the early 70s to the early 2000s, and did some celebrations. That was over multiple races, of course, but magnitudes of difference because of the different sponsor between a title sponsor and of course the sponsorship of a single team. But still good to see there at the same time. I have to talk about our last place battle at the same time, and with talking about that, we certainly have to talk about the ascendancy of Ty Gibbs into the Cup Series entry for Kurt Busch's team. And first and foremost, before we go any further down that road, certainly hoping that Kurt Busch is doing okay on his recovery there. Concussions are nothing to mess with, especially these days and with these speeds. And in the 45 car there, for those who don't know, and it was reported, of course, in the broadcast, there was a qualifying incident or an incident during the practice session yesterday where the 45 car slammed into the outside wall. Seemed like it was a pretty minor incident, although at Pocono, the hits are always very big with the straightaways as long as they are and the corners as sharp as they are. However, in the case with Kurt Busch, it sounded like he was going to be okay and set to go. They got the backup car ready to go for the race, but Kurt reported he still had symptoms of the concussion and stepped out of the car after visiting the infield care center. Again, wise move for him. Certainly, he's got his win earlier this year at Kansas. I'm sure NASCAR will grant him some kind of medical exemption because it seems like they pull those out pretty quickly from one time to the next, and it'll be something else for them to kind of look at. But again, hopefully we'll see him back at Indianapolis next week. Not sure what the case is. I'm sure they're just going to take it 1 week at a time here. but we'll find out. But of course, the net effect of all of this is that Ty Gibbs got to make a rather unexpected Cup Series debut. Both Eric Jones and Kaz Gralla were very much aware of this. They had to, between what was it, COVID protocols for Gralla, or the situation with Hamlin. In the case of Eric Jones, I believe, was that the one where he had like a piece of metal? He had like a metal debris in his eye. I believe it was at Fontana or one of those tracks. But again, some of these situations, you have a driver that just unexpectedly kind of gets thrown into the mix. And the timing of this, of course, is a bit unusual because Ty Gibbs' name has, of course, been coming up a lot with both the issues with Kyle Busch's sponsorship for next year and, potentially just a lot of Joe Gibbs drivers just kind of struggling a little bit. Seems strange to say that now, given how, really all the teams, including even the 2311 teams, were performing so much better today. But it's certainly going to keep fueling all the silly season discussions coming up here between this race and coming up from there. But I have to say, given the fact that this is such a different car, such a radically different car from the Xfinity Series, between the sequential shifter, the issues at the toe link, and just plain old how the car is handling. So many incidents in turn three over the entire weekend, but particularly in the Cup Series. I don't know if it's just a situation where this car just gets looser and looser around that really long corner, and then by the time it comes off, it just kind of wants to keep turning. It could be a situation there. It seemed like that was what was happening when you had with Byron and Chastain and others. But one way or the other, we didn't see Gibbs spin out during any part of this race. He took a nice conservative approach. I thought it was a good idea to lay back there and just kind of let the field pull away and try to reel him back in there. He was about 8/10 back of, I believe it was BJ McLeod at the time when the race actually started. But he still had a strong piece, was actually able to start challenging McLeod for position at the end of the first lap, gained a couple more spots after that. Was up to about the 15th spot, if not a little bit higher than that. Certainly, I'm glad that NBC was recognizing this run for as good as it was. Drop back a couple spots at the end. These things happen. The racecraft at the end of a Cup Series race, everybody gets competitive for those last couple of spots. Shuffled back unofficially into the 18th spot there at the finish. But I have to say, mission accomplished. I think that was a fantastic run for him. It shouldn't be, I guess, that surprising given how quickly Gibbs acclimated himself to the Xfinity Series and winning so early at that Daytona road course, and now racking up so many wins where now he's just a regular contender every week. Had a fantastic battle in the Saturday race there between him and Gragson. Very interesting that in his Cup debut, Gragson just happens to be in the race as well with one of his pre-scheduled races for the colleague effort. And although Gragson didn't really seem to contend, it at least seemed he was able to stay out of trouble, unlike some of his previous runs here at Atlanta and so forth. Again, really a great job. I think the future is looking very bright with Gibbs getting into the mix here. It's sometimes hard to tell with the driver's first start because some drivers have just had miserable first starts and just never really being a contender. Jeff Gordon famously had all kinds of problems in the 1992 Hooters 500 when he was trying to stay out of the way, had a roll of tape come off of his car and hit Davey Allison's car, ended up unfortunately playing a factor into the championship battle. Not the incident that took Allison out of the race, but it was one of the many issues that they had to kind of patch that car together before the unfortunate incident with Ernie Irvin at the end. Ended up, I believe he was 31st, Gordon was at the end of that race. Then you have on the other side drivers like Rusty Wallace, where in his very first start, he finishes second to Dale Earnhardt in Atlanta. And everybody's like, wait, where the heck did this kid come from? Again, you never know what you're going to get. They were right to kind of bring up other drivers that have been in difficult situations. But I think with the lack of the complete unpredictability of this car and how much you have to kind of adjust to, and at a track that I think was very difficult for a lot of the series regulars, it has to be said. I think it was a fantastic job, and I think I think it's well worth mentioning there. And whatever his situation is for either the rest of this season or the first part of next season or whenever it's going to be, certainly one to look at. I think it's also unfortunate for Kurt Busch in this particular case. I think this is only going to fuel further speculation of him stepping out of the ride. Kurt, in one of his interviews earlier this week, seemed to indicate that that was something he was still considering, which would alleviate all of the stuff that's been spiraling around ever since Tyler Reddick announced that he was going to be driving for 2311, not next year, but the year after. Seems like the dominoes are already kind of falling into place. It's an unfortunate situation with NASCAR, and I think it's only gotten worse with the charter system and the fewer number of teams that are out there that's resulted from it. Sometimes it's not a situation where you can even put a driver, even a driver of Kurt's caliber, where he is still a winning driver. Won this year at Kansas, very capable of winning any other races later on this season. But it's a difficult situation. And again, I don't begrudge at all him taking his own health into consideration there with concussion and everything like that. I think he took exactly the right strategy there. Looking forward, though, that's where we have to kind of look at things coming up here. And I hate to know that there's probably going to be more pressure put on him in the in the Cup Series there with 2311. But hopefully that's not going to be as much there, because I think that that is kind of a situation coming up there at the same time. So yeah, we had that situation there with him. Ty Gibbs climbed out of last place pretty early in the event. However, it was a disastrous afternoon for the Penske racing effort between Austin Cindric's early spin that dropped him back in the rankings there. Seemed to do some damage to the underside of the car after bouncing into the inside wall there. Luckily, much lighter contact than a lot of the hits we saw during the Xfinity Series race there. But came back out there, had a toe link issue. But luckily, a lot of these teams are now starting to get really, really good at replacing those. Again, we mentioned, of course, Joey Logano at Atlanta. Before that, Denny Hamlin at Gateway. And now the third of these incidents, at least the ones that have been reported publicly, Austin Cindric's team getting that toe link replaced and getting him back out there. Yes, he was 6 laps down. He wasn't really a factor in the rest of the race after that, but much better run than he could have had ordinarily. And that was much more a result of the attrition that we had after that. First, the incident with Josh Bilicki in turn 1 that ultimately ended the last place battle. Of course, pending the results of post-race inspection. A very hard hit to the outside wall. Glad to see him climb out of the car there, especially after what happened with Kurt Busch's accident. I hope that, I'm not sure what, if anything else has been going on in terms of concussion protocol with Bilicki. I'm hopeful it's something positive, because he did drop the window net pretty quickly in that incident. And I know that Bilicki's certainly looking forward to the Indy road course race. I assume he's entered in that because he had one of his best runs in the 52 car last year in that event when he had the Saved by the Bell paint scheme there for the Rick Ware injury. So hopefully he can bounce back from that. You had that particular incident. He takes the last spot from Cindric, and unofficially only the second last place finish in Bilicki's career. In fact, that became kind of a consistent trend from this weekend's races. Cup, Xfinity, and the Truck Series race all saw a driver get their second last place finish, but under 3 very different circumstances between them, between a complete newcomer like Raja Carruth and just making his second or third start this season, versus Todd Bodine making his 800th and potentially final NASCAR start in the Truck Series, and then right in between Josh Bilicki in his 85th Cup Series start, getting his first of the season, first, I believe it was since Kansas last year in that case there. So kind of a different situation there at the same time. So that would be another one to kind of look at there too. Austin Cindric very nearly gave the number 2 car its only second last place finish in a Cup Series race at Pocono. The first one was Rusty Wallace at Pocono in 1999. That's the only other time the number 2 is finished last in a Cup Series race at Pocono. Rusty, as well as Kurt Busch and other drivers, have been very successful in that car at this track. And but unfortunately today wasn't really so much of a successful day, but you had a different situation there with these other drivers in that case there. So looking at the rest of the results here at the same time, Chase Elliott in the 3rd spot, Tyler Reddick in 4th, Daniel Suarez taking home 5th, Christopher Bell continuing the momentum of his win at New Hampshire, taking the 6th spot, Kyle Larson in 7th, Michael McDowell 8th, Martin Truex Jr. in the 9th spot, and Bubba Wallace in 10th. Again, he seems like he really does have a knack for these kind of flat tracks. Seen some great, he had very few attempts to do the Brickyard 400, but seemed to have some good runs there. That continuing here at Pocono with the 10th place finish, just ahead of Eric Jones. Eric Jones looked like he was back to about the form we saw out of him the first couple of races this season. Other than Talladega, it seems like he's kind of really struggled to find that consistency since then. He ran much better than that 11th place performance showed here. Austin Dillon was able to kind of work some strategy to get in the 12th spot, tried a bit of a different pit strategy earlier in the race, And at least on paper, it seemed to work out pretty good, finishing ahead of two of the Hendrick cars there in 13th and 14th, being Bowman and Byron. Almirola in 15th, coming back from a spin, where he came back up the exit rather of pit road. I think that's another controversy to certainly talk about here. And it's surprising that it still is a controversy, frankly. Back at Fontana, of course, we had so many drivers that were losing multiple laps because NASCAR found out too late, of course, that when these drivers with these low profiles and these flat bottoms, if they actually have a flat tire, they can't drag that car all the way around the track like they used to. You suddenly have this whole different issue with the diffuser, and we saw some very different ways to have that handled today. And again, at a track where so many people are having problems off of turn three, and you have a flat tire, and you miss the entrance of pit road because the pit road wall was extended. Of course, the safety concerns behind that, totally get it. Glad that they did it. But of course, an unintentional effect of that is now you got to get a little creative getting these cars back onto pit road. We saw a situation with Cindric. He basically stopped out there. Tow truck brought him back in. But NBC, one way or the other, made a big point about how much damage was being done to the diffuser there, and seeing just debris coming off of it. And I'm sure that was in the minds of the Stewart-Haas team when Almirola had flat tires after his spin and just drove his car back around to the exit of pit road. Especially in his case, where his pit stall was so close to the exit of pit road and where nobody else was on there, so he wasn't endangering anybody else. And he certainly wasn't going at a high rate of speed. I thought NASCAR handled that pretty well. Obviously, they still gave him some kind of a commitment line violation on that. I guess on paper that would be something suitable. It's not really going to change the outcome of it too much, especially since he had to make another stop anyway. So I thought that was a decent way to handle it, and it's good to see Almirola again claw out a decent run out of what could have been a pretty bad situation there for him. Speaking of NASCAR officiating, though, and there was some good discussion about this, and I certainly understand both sides of this here. Again, Almirola's situation brought out a caution. Why didn't Chris Buescher's situation, where he spun out off the same corner and didn't hit the wall just like Almirola? Again, I think the inconsistent officiating, they need to kind of clear that up. I know they've tried so many different things, and I know that there have at least been attempts to kind of create a different protocol for what brings out a caution, either to kind of create a different step where it's not just a switch immediately flipped before they even declare that a caution is out. It still seems like the response time is pretty quick over the radio, at least over those first couple of cautions. Even when they were just single car incidents, and even at a track where it's wide enough that drivers can get away. I think that maybe a situation like this would be something that should be handled better in the drivers' meeting. I know the way the drivers' meeting is handled is very different now in this, post-pandemic era here. But it would be interesting to find out if there was a lot more that was done where the drivers could clear up and say, look, each track is different. You can have a situation where a car spins off at Bristol, and it's going to be a big mess if you don't throw out a caution, and things happen really quickly. Is it really the same situation at a road course? Is it a situation at Road America where you have all these routes where a car could pull off the track out of the way? Is it the same at Pocono, where the laps are so long and you have these access roads like you have at Indianapolis where a car can pull off the track? Is that the same scenario? I think the problem that NASCAR has had is they're trying to find a one-size-fits-all situation for all these tracks. And, in the past, it's been, okay, you see a car spin out, boom, it's going to be a caution. And, but is it going to be the same in every situation? It's always going to be a judgment call, I think, to a degree. And you can look at two incidents like the ones today and say that, okay, well, these are going to be very similar incidents. They probably should have both had a caution, or both shouldn't have had a caution. I think as long as the drivers are made aware of this and then have a chance to kind of chime in on it, and maybe they just handle it different, they can all kind of agree to disagree. It seems like it is something that should be handled at least one race at a time, and kind of custom make it. And I think to us, it's still going to feel like inconsistent officiating, because we're going to see, okay, well, wait a minute, why did this happen? Why didn't that happen? But and again, that may still be the situation. But I think if they had something where at least the drivers are involved in it, and they understand that, okay, it's still green even though this guy spun out, this one race, I think as long as that's understood, I think that would be kind of a different way to really kind of address that. I don't know if that's what's happening. I hope it would happen, that they could kind of work that out, because yeah, if it is just kind of willy nilly, I think that you potentially hold the risk, of course, creating a dangerous situation. Whether it's a spin on the last lap of a super speedway, which so often happens. But is it an incident that's well back in the field and nobody's going to be involved in it, or is it a wreck that's like right in front of the start finish line and the leaders are going to have to navigate their way through it before they get to the finish line? Obviously, those are very different scenarios. So, again, I'd like to see. I think it may be a little bit. Maybe at the end of the day, this isn't so much looking for. I think the consistency in the officiating that we're looking for is just that it's consistently logical. That it's like, okay, that's going to be a different. It's going to be a different situation there for that. So, um, yeah, I think that would be something else to kind of look at, from that perspective. So it may not look consistent as in this incident brings out this caution, but at least there's like some underlying consistency behind it there. I don't know where we are with that. Again, it could be argued that we certainly weren't there from what we saw today, but again, it's hard to tell. And I think there is, I think there, I sense that there's a situation where if it's a race where you see one part of the track have multiple incidents, and you have one part of the track where multiple drivers are spinning out in the same corner, but they're not having, a significant accident. It's not a multi-car accident in those cases. The NASCAR may after a while be like, okay, well, are we going to throw a caution for this one like we did the previous ones? Maybe not, but if you're leaving the drivers and the teams out of that, that doesn't really kind of help things either. So something needs to be kind of figured out. Not sure what that should be, but I think those are the considerations that maybe should factor into that at the same time. So Josh Bilicki being out of the race there, your last place finisher in the race unofficially, second last place finish of his Cup Series career. Ryan Blaney, one of the other drivers, had issues off of turn three in his particular case, slammed into the extended pit wall there. Good to see him get back out of the car there. And then, of course, we just barely touched on this earlier there. Of course, Ross Chastain's incident with Denny Hamlin. Now, we've all wondered what was going to happen since Gateway. I thought, if you want to talk about inconsistent officiating, I'm still kind of surprised with how NASCAR handled what was going on between Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain. On the one hand, I liked that, if these two drivers are just kind of play head games and kind of trying to kind of make it difficult to get around somebody. I think that happens a lot more often than maybe we even see on the average broadcast. This was certainly a case that I think just brought a lot more attention to it, and it seemed somehow much bigger because, of course, the network was making a big deal out of it at the time, mentioning, of course, back in the Gateway situation. And again, we've heard about a lot of drivers, talk the talk and say, it's like, oh, well, he's not going to win the war or this or that, especially when you get down to the playoffs and you have some kind of a rivalry there. I think it was anybody's guess what was going to happen with this whole Denny Hamlin Ross Chastain thing. I think a lot of people were kind of guessing that this was going to be something that was going to manifest much closer to the playoffs, especially from, I guess, some clues that Denny was presenting in some of his interviews. But at the end of this race, we did have an opportunity, and I'm sure Denny was thinking this at the time, to immediately pay it back. And you have a situation where both Denny and Chastain are on the front row for a late race restart, going for the win. Hamlin's car was kind of gaining towards the end of the race. Chastain was one of the best cars the entire day, outside of the Gibbs guys. Seemed to be at least the best of the rest in that regard, even better than Chase Elliott, which I think was pretty surprising given Elliott's momentum. You have the race that go into the first corner. They're still side by side. Chastain theoretically could have backed off in that situation and not forced the issue, but he stayed right with Hamlin. And Hamlin, could he have maybe given him some more room? Well, yeah, in a perfect world, that could have been a situation there. But you had two drivers that I think weren't going to blink, and I think both of them were just going to just kind of go in there, and they weren't going to change anything. And it ultimately ended up with Chastain hitting the wall. Maybe he breathed it just a little bit, and it was just enough to not take Hamlin out at the same time. And kudos to Kyle Busch for figuring out that this was going to happen in advance. It seemed like he really did back off going into the corner. A couple other people were pointing this out online, and rightly so. But even after Chastain bounced into the outside wall, Kyle Busch just barely avoided contact in that. I think Christopher Bell had a pretty close call there too. Could have been a much bigger accident. Not so fortunate, of course, was Kevin Harvick. who ran in the back of Chastain's car. There's just nowhere to go. I mean, that pinch point comes up there coming off the corner. It just bounces the car right back into traffic, and that's where you have a much more dangerous situation. And this, of course, is the other side of it. Um, if you're going to have a retaliation between two drivers that are championship caliber, it's generally going to happen in the front of the field. And I think at this point, that's where NASCAR really had to kind of weigh the options of how they're going to handle this since Gateway, since both drivers are continuing, really since Gateway, to still be contenders for these wins. Both of them have had some bad luck in one race or another, but both of them have generally still been just as consistent as they've been to this point. You get around to this race, though, and you have an accident there, especially on a race weekend where you have a driver that's already had concussion and had to have a relief driver brought in there. It's surprising that they took a little bit of a hands-off approach in this particular case there. Because, of course, if you have a situation like this where you have an accident in the first corner, it's going to slide back into traffic. It could have very easily been a much larger accident. Again, if Kyle Busch got hooked or Christopher Bell or anybody else, we could have had a situation that could have been very close to what we saw in the Xfinity Series race, certainly. Thankfully, we didn't. Thankfully, it wasn't more serious than it was. Thankfully, Ross Chastain got out of the car. Again, I think that's where the other issue is. In the meantime, I don't know, what's going to happen from here. Ross didn't seem to really know where it was going. Denny seemed only too happy to mention it in his post-race interview there. Again, I think NASCAR could very easily in this position just kind of say, okay, well, look, everybody, both of you guys had your pound of flesh out of this. It's not going to, be any more of a situation. So, okay, that's going to be the end of it. Nothing else is going to be happening. And, but if either of you guys do something, maybe we're going to treat it a little bit differently because now it's a whole other thing. It's not one to the other. So, hard to say. I don't like it when there's too much of this drama between these drivers that plays up there. I think it sometimes distracts a bit from the racing because I think we did see some really good racing today generally throughout the pack and seeing people kind of work their way up there. But that's going to be another situation there too. But again, it still was an unfortunate deal for Harvick. I don't know if they interviewed Harvick after the race. It would have been interesting to get his side of it there. I know he's pretty short in his interviews, but again, I think it's unfortunate that again, and it's when you have these battles up front, and it could happen at any time. It could happen just entirely accidental. It doesn't even have to be something deliberate or just where you have two drivers that aren't going to cede each other any ground. You could have a situation that could very easily involve other drivers, and that's a situation. Um, so this kind of brings me back around to the Ty Gibbs deal here again too. And I think one thing that's been kind of lurking under the surface about this next gen car and the safety abilities of it or the safety features of the car. There's been a lot of rumblings, and I've heard just little pieces and this and that about how much of these impacts these drivers are sustaining from these cars, about these cars being really stiff. We've heard about so much about this since those discussions last year about some of the crash tests and these situations about what effect they were having on the dummies that were being used inside the cars during a lot of the controlled crash tests. Again, it's hard to tell. And I think this year has been a bit of an experiment, just like with any of the other features, just like it has been with the single lug, just like it has been with the aluminum rims, just like it has been with the toe links and every other feature there. But I think Kurt Busch's accident, if I'm being genuinely honest, uh, is a little bit troubling as to how much of an impact these drivers are experiencing. I think by and large, and we too often hear this in particular accidents, even with the older car, that the accident really didn't look that bad, even at Pocono, at Pocono where you get very very big hits because the track is so long and with such tight corners. Um, I think I think it should be a little bit troubling um, that Kurt Busch had concussion-like symptoms from that impact, from an impact where yes, they had to go to a backup car. Yes, it did destroy the car, but you had a situation where was this the same caliber of an incident like Josh Bilicki had in Turn One? And again, hopefully things are fine on that end. I don't want to put anything in anybody's head about that, but I'm going to be very hopeful that that things are okay, coming forward, because we didn't know anything of what was going on with Kurt Busch really until today. It seemed like this was a very late in the going kind of revelation there with him. And I know Kurt's an older driver than Balicki and other competitors out there. That's certainly a factor. Um, but yeah, I mean, how much of it, I think it's worth kind of cataloging, what's going on with some of these much more serious hits. Austin Dillon's wreck at Atlanta also comes to mind. Some of these other wrecks that were, particularly severe, and where, the car doesn't seem to show a lot of damage. I know when I did, the 3 Before February documentary, one thing that some people were talking about is the rigidity of the cars, and I know that that's also been a kind of a concern. Ryan Newman expressing some concerns about this at the end of last year when he was kind of scaling back on his Cup career. How much of that is really going on, and how much of that are we seeing? I hope that there is some kind of way where the drivers are able to kind of report, problems or concerns they had. It doesn't even have to raise to the level of a concussion. That should be the absolute max of the awareness of any kind of situation. But even just like a minor soreness or anything like that, I hope that that's being kind of cataloged by NASCAR as they're tracking the effectiveness of these wrecks. I think we were very relieved back in Daytona when there were a couple pretty big hits, starting with Joey Logano's wreck in the qualifying races, and it seemed like just get out of the car and it's not that big of a deal. But again, I don't know if there has been any kind of change going on behind the scenes with these cars, especially being spec cars, and especially these teams being limited to how many cars they have. Um, I'm not sure what's going on that end. So I'm a little troubled that this particular incident led to this particular injury. I don't know if there was some other kind of supervening factor that led to it, but I think that's something else that I think that's where it has to be kind of figured out. Door Bumper Clear said that they were talking about mild hits hurting the drivers more than harder hits. See, that's interesting. I had not heard that. I haven't really watched that show, so I think that would be another one to kind of talk about too. But yeah, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to find out. I don't know. It would be good. I mean, again, this is where I get a little bit frustrated with some of these broadcasts and some of these other content. I'm glad that the podcasts are at least kind of following up on this and kind of digging through some of this information here. But there needs to be some more mainstream kind of access to this to really kind of understand what's going on, because otherwise, we just don't know. We're just kind of playing it by ear, and then the race they'll just kind of show a particular accident, and then they just kind of move on. So I think that's kind of a different situation. But yeah, I think that's really kind of another thing to kind of look at there too. I saw the comment here too. Yeah, it was Chastain going to bad booking. Yeah, it was Chastain going to lift and lose many spots with rain in the area. Potentially, yeah, no, not likely. Especially going for the lead, and especially knowing that Denny Hamlin isn't going to cut him any slack either. I think Chastain probably went into that corner knowing more than likely, one of them or both of them were going to get in a wreck. That this was just an inevitable thing. But he knew that he had a fast pace. He knew he had some good stage points, and he was now going into the end of this race with a chance to maybe go for it. He knew he was going to lose the race if he backed off, and you're right. Yeah, it could have, and it's even could be argued that it probably could have led to an accident itself if he backed off. There were a lot of close calls earlier in this race, and NBC did a decent job with some of the camera angles exiting turn one, where you could actually see how drivers could gain and lose momentum and how close they had to kind of dart around other people to kind of get through traffic. I thought that was done very effectively. But yeah, I think he probably knew going into that corner this was going to be a situation where, yeah, both these cars might not get out the other side in one piece. It might just be a big wreck, and it might not. And that's part of racing too. I think that they knew that. So yeah, that was certainly another situation that was happening there too. Let's see. Yep, Suarez with the top five and McDowell with the top 10. Exactly, Austin. I think it's fantastic for both those teams. McDowell had a very solid run. Seemed like he was about to get put into the wall there during one of those incidents off of turn one. But luckily, again, for all the problems with these toe links, it's good that these cars are able to get out there and be durable enough to actually sustain even a kind of minor incident and still get a decent finish out of it. So I think that was a great job by the 34 team. This always seems like a track that should be in McDowell's wheelhouse, given his road course experience. I know that the shifting, of course, with the sequential shifter is kind of factored into that too. But even before that, with much older cars, they always talked about this track. Kind of the roval term seemed to kind of be applied more to this track well before we ever had the Charlotte Roval. But kind of the concept of a oval that you kind of had to use road course strategies to kind of navigate the fastest way, knowing you had to hit each of these corners very precisely in a way that's very different from even a place like Indianapolis, where, of course, one of the turns is modeled after, or certainly a more traditional mile and a half track where the way you race it is very different. But yeah, I think that was a great run that McDowell had here at the same time. Let's see here. Anything else on that? Let me get into the Xfinity Series race here at the same time because there's a lot more to certainly talk about that. We'll talk about the top three series. Also, I want to kind of touch on a couple of the other big news stories that have come from this week. Certainly want to talk a bit more about the Chicago street race. I think did we talk about that last week, or was that was this week, wasn't it? Let me make sure to check my notes here again on that. Yes, we talked about the Chicago Street Course and the possibility of electric car exhibition races next year. Both points that could be making next season very interesting in one way or the other here. So we'll certainly talk about that at the same time here. Let me get into the Xfinity Series race here as well, because I believe we had a fantastic race, the Xfinity Series, but not without some pretty hair-raising moments here at the same time. So again, Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs, before they actually competed against each other in the Cup Series race, were racing against each other in the Xfinity Series race. And it's been said by many people already, but again, I have to really applaud the ability of both these drivers to race each other as cleanly as they did. I think especially the rivalry between the two of them, as they're both trying to find a ride in the Cup Series and trying to figure out where they fit and everything with these charters and all that. Gregson's got a foothold now, of course, with the Colleague team getting multiple charters to keep the 16 and the 31 on the track full time, but only as a part-time guy in the Xfinity Series so far. These races are still going to be very significant for him coming forward here from one race to the next, and I think that's going to be something else to kind of look forward to. But I thought the end of that race, especially the last 15 laps, I thought was very good. I think it was great to see that these drivers can race cleanly. I think it's a big criticism of really a lot of these new drivers these days, but particularly these two at one point or another have each been in a situation where a driver just didn't race somebody cleanly, and you can just look at it critically and just be like, well, wait a minute, why did they do that when they could just race each other? Very much like we saw, at least for moments in the Cup Series race here, although it was, much more winner take all on that side. A lot of good battles there at the end of that. Seemed like even on the last lap, being able to draw alongside Gragson there. Gibbs seemed like he had a little bit of a faster car, but Gragson showed just remarkable poise and good car control, keeping that car straight in the high lane there, where it seemed like so many other cars were like slipping and sliding around that part of the track. And under the challenging conditions of also being very much later in the day, where I imagine it probably was the hottest and the track was probably the slickest, at least from the conditions that we had this weekend. I think that was really good to see. So Noah Gragson pulling off the victory there over Ty Gibbs. Josh Berry in the third spot. AJ Allmendinger in fourth. Sheldon Creed in the fifth spot there. Fine run for him and the Childress effort there. Sam Mayer right behind there in the sixth spot. Justin Allgaier seventh there, which is actually kind of a bad run for him given how dominant he's been in a lot of these races lately. Austin Hill in eighth. Daniel Hemrick in ninth. And Cole Custer rounding at the top 10. Another driver, of course, we're pulling for there, understood that there was a family situation, was the reason that Joe Graf Jr. was not in the Xfinity Series race this weekend. Custer coming on board there and getting a good finish with them. Hopefully we'll see Graf back next week in the Indy Road Course race. But again, I think that's been another certainly storyline that's come up here in these last couple of rounds. But again, Custer rounding out the top 10 there in the G-coined Ford for the SS Green Light effort. The last place battle in this race was pretty open and shut. Raja Carruth has been, I think, a fantastic new addition to the series. I think a lot of people are very excited about him, as certainly they should be, given his performance in the ARCA series. Getting very close to his first victory in that series with a lot of top fives this year, and still looking to get some good runs. I believe this is his third start in the Alpha Prime Racing entry. He had his debut at Richmond was doing pretty well there. Dover, he was getting a lot of attention in the broadcast there, kind of working through the field. Unfortunately, had a situation, a mechanical failure on the car, dropped him into last place in that event, and he ended up being featured on the site. In this particular case, again, I think it's a track that ARCA runs on, although I believe he wasn't actually in an ARCA race at Pocono until this week, where he did have a good run in that race as well. End up having an incident there in the number 44 car, broke loose off of turn 3 into Alex Labay. Both those cars very hard into the inside wall. A bit of, again, very surprised to see turn 3 be such a treacherous corner in the Xfinity Series, where again, you don't have the issues of this new car and it handling very differently. Seemed like it was very much a problem in at least a couple of the biggest incidents in the Xfinity race yesterday. And that was certainly the case. Unfortunately, both LeBay and Carruth very hard into the outside wall. Fortunately for them, both getting out of the car and checked and released from the infield care center pretty quickly. I certainly applaud Carruth for being very upfront about saying that he just made a mistake, broke loose, got into him. It's an unfortunate learning experience. I think NBC, to their credit, was also doing a good job bringing up that, sometimes we forget that the Xfinity Series is still a series where drivers learn and have to, learn to be able to compete. Sometimes the way you learn is that you have a good run, but sometimes the way you learn is you have an unfortunate accident that takes you out of the race. You end up on my site, and then you end up, having a good run further down the road. It's something you can look back on and just be like, well, hey, at least I'm not making that mistake next time. So again, I think that I thought, he handled himself very well in that. And I think, again, another of these other drivers that's kind of working their way up the ranks. And, hopefully in these next few starts here, I'm not sure how many more starts he has this year. It seems like Alpha Prime is just picking up more and more different drivers to be competing in there at the same time. But again, unfortunate that he dropped out of the race there at the beginning. The other big accident that occurred after that, this being again on lap 46, big pileup off of turn 3. This one, Santino Ferrucci spun out off the third corner there. And like we saw, almost kind of similar to some of the incidents we saw in New Hampshire. Actually, I guess even the Xfinity race in New Hampshire. Car spinning sideways, a lot of smoke coming up there. Car almost stops coming off the corner instead of rolling down the track. But unfortunately, the other cars are still going full speed, and you get a big pileup that ensued. One of the other drivers that was involved was Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who dropped into the Big Machine Racing team in place of Tyler Reddick. And I'm sure the 2311 announcement seemed to have some reason for that, although Stenhouse was kind of a surprising addition, I'd say, to the Xfinity Series, despite, of course, the fact that he's a multiple-time champion in the series from years ago. Stenhouse, regardless, involved in that accident, cuts to the left, and then you have Jeb Burton closing on the scene, and a hole closes very quickly there. It looked like he had just a little bit of room to stay on the track. Unfortunately, Stenhouse comes down, pinches him into the wall. Scary incident there where the car pops up and slides on its roof, slides across the finish line. Now, this, of course, leads to another thing that I certainly want to address. And, of course, not counting on being part of the story, but I did mention this after the accident, and I do stand by it. Rick Allen has this, he sees this accident happen. He does wait for a moment before saying anything, but then immediately there's a conversation of, before Burton is out of the car, and before really there's even, a thumbs up from the official that's on the scene there. Rick Allen's talking with Jeff Burton's like, well, what's it like being in an upside down car? And I'm like, okay, so first of all, one thing that irked me about that was like, okay, not knowing the Kurt Busch situation, of course, at the time, this is, of course, a very different situation. Um, First of all, if you want to ask somebody about like what it was like to be upside down, how about you just ask Jeb after he gets out of the car? Like, let's start thinking about that. I liked, that he at least waited a little bit before he was kind of going into this whole conversation there. But I still think it kind of reeked of a bit of complacency with it. That, okay, you heard there's the car slides to a stop. You do hear Jeb Burton's voice on the radio before the crew members get over there, and nobody's saying anything in that moment. Finally, he starts talking about this, and you kind of get a situation on there where, the crew members are out there and making sure he can get out of the car. He's not out of the car yet. Haven't got the thumbs up from the official there, but of course, you can hear from the radio. But the only thing that Rick Allen says at the moment when that incident happens, and you hear him on the radio, he just says, "Oh, you hear Jeb on the radio," and that's it. Now, first of all, I'll admit I didn't hear him say that, but I'm not going to give any excuses on that. Second of all, that shouldn't have been an issue because now there is a way to handle when there's a serious accident. And I think that any situation where a car is flipped over on its roof qualifies as a serious accident because you don't know. And even if the person's talking on the radio, there should at least be a little bit of a gasp. It should be like, "Oh, thank goodness! Thank goodness he's talking on the radio. Thank goodness he's okay." It's like, "Oh, it's good to see the strength of these cars." Like that was a wild ride he took. There was none of that. There was none of that in that situation, and I thought that was still a situation. I thought that was a bit too complacent. It's like, oh, there he is on the radio. It's like that shouldn't be a small moment. That should be a big moment because that was a freaky accident there. Maybe the chances of anything serious happening were low. And thankfully nobody else was hitting him. I mean, it was still a situation where the car was sliding on the roof. Is somebody going to slow down enough? I mean, you're going to make sure nobody else is going to be involved in this incident. There was no guarantee of that at the first moment when the car was kind of sliding to a stop there. Could have been a very serious situation. Think back to Austin Dillon's wreck at Daytona in 2015 when it was, where the car flipped up into the catch fence, and then a few seconds later, Keselowski's car kind of skates into the scene and slides into him. Not intentionally at all, but of course it made the incident even more harrowing. Could have very easily been a situation like that. I just thought that was a bit mishandled there from that. And in point of fact, again, as I've said in the broadcast problems video, I think when somebody is in a position as a professional, as a broadcaster, they should be held to a higher standard. If they're just kind of acting all lackadaisical about a serious accident like that, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I will give him credit. I will concede that at the very least, he kind of stayed silent there when the accident happened and they were kind of waiting to hear from the radio. That's good. I'll concede that point. But anything beyond that and how it was handled after that point, um, I was not entirely impressed on that, and that's kind of a situation. And I get that it seems like it's a petty thing and all that, and I know that posting it on social media is always an issue because the perception, I think, and this is unfortunate, is there's no way to like have anything given any kind of scale. So when somebody posts something, it's like this must be the biggest thing ever, and it's like it could just be like somebody posting a picture of their scrambled eggs, and it's like eggs. It's like what does this mean? It's like no, no, no. It's just it's not that much there. It's like it just needs to be handled differently. It's just it's like look, I'm not going to pull back on like offering any other notes on the way that these broadcasts can be handled better because it is a whole series of small things. It's not a huge thing. It's just a lot of little itty bitty things that if they're just handled differently. Think if Lee Diffie was in the booth for this or Alan Bestwick and you had an incident like this. And even if you did hear from the radio, just have like a thing where you say, "Oh, you hear his voice on the radio, that means he's okay." Like you could say that. Or it's, just like, "Hey, he's on the radio." It's like that was nothing. Like I had to re-listen to the clip just to make sure I'm not missing something here. But I thought that was strange. So again, is it the most important thing, of course, is Jeb Burton's out of the car and he's okay, that it wasn't a more serious situation than it was. But I think that was another kind of part. I'm not saying again, it has to be like, the sky is falling. It's like, oh my gosh, can you believe that this happened? It's like, no, 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 it's like, yeah, it's like there's a middle ground here. And again, I think that's where the difference is. It's a difference of scale. But, I'm not the only one that notices it, okay? It's a difference of, if you're down here and too much is over here, you still got all this gray area to kind of play with. I'm just saying if they could play with that a little bit more, that'd be the same thing. Similar a situation. I didn't actually bring this up, and I was about to, because I think it would have distracted a bit from how good they were handling it in the pre-race. Was that segment that they did on Sage Karam and the accident that he had at Pocono, and again, I think it's a very difficult subject to talk about. Certainly for Karam himself, because that incident that he had with the IndyCar race, it was a complete freak accident. It was a freak accident. It wasn't even a situation where his car, made contact with Justin Wilson's car. It's just this freak thing where he was racing for the lead. He was excited. He was getting up there. It was 20 laps to go. It was just getting down to the end of the race, and then all of a sudden the car spins out. He gets in the accident, and it's like, oh man, it's just this terrible. He had a great run going, and this IndyCar, first IndyCar win just kind of slips from his grasp. And then he finds out after the fact that the debris from his car is what struck Justin Wilson's helmet. And then tragically, Justin Wilson lost his life as a result of that accident. I thought in that that's a very difficult story to even really broach. I know that I felt like that a little bit when I was writing my article about Sage when he got his last place run at the Atlanta race there too, and again in the feature when he was entered back in the car again this week. And Sage certainly shared that as well, and was mentioning that he was going to be kind of feeling a little bit weird about driving into that first corner at full speed again, and saying that he wanted to finish the race under power, which I believe he did. He finished actually on the lead lap in the 20th spot. So kudos to him for that. It's a difficult subject because again, you think back to something back in like 2001. I remember when Sterling Marlin got all that grief from the incident in the 2001 Daytona 500, and of course. It's an accident that nobody knew was going to be as serious as it was, and I still believe that the content that led to that accident was much more well beyond Sterling Marlin's role in that accident there too. But I'm sure he's a driver that can also relate to what Karam has been going through in that. But my point in bringing all this up is I thought NBC did a decent job in their broadcast of actually doing a segment on it. It wasn't too over the top or anything like that. And just talking to Sage about this and what he's dealt with. I think that hasn't really gone. I think that he hasn't really been as public about that, but undoubtedly it's affected him and his career since then. And kind of having that view. And I thought really, I wasn't sure how much Kyle Petty and Dale Jr. were going to say on the subject, since both of them were, of course, touched by, very personally very similar circumstances there, and dealing with that, and then also dealing with Sage's particular circumstances where this thing happens. You were on the track at the time, or you were competing at the time, and then you go back out there and run there again. I thought that was was a tremendous segment on that, and and again I felt that it was tastefully done. I did say that there too. The reason I bring this up there at the same time is Rick Allen was trying to kind of build on that and kind of mention it a bit in the broadcast, and it just came off a little flat a little bit. He was kind of trying to bring it up again with Sage, and I think he realized that too. I think when he was starting to kind of talk about Sage a bit in the beginning of the race, I thought that was a little bit too much. I think I guess I can't be too picky on Rick himself for that, because I think if anybody else brought it up at that point, that probably would have been a bit too much too. That was the other thing that I thought was a little bit, but I kind of let it go, and I'm like, all right. So that was kind of what was going through my mind there too when it came down to the incident with Jeb Burton. But again, the important thing there, Jeb Burton's okay. It wasn't more serious than it was. But again, I think that's there's still things that need to be kind of handled a bit more. And I'm kind of chewing on. I might do an article on this a bit later because I'm kind of looking at what is the overarching situation? What's the overarching thing about racing and about broadcasting really that needs to be addressed? What's that element that's not there? Is I think the closest that I can think to what that element is that racing isn't an everyday thing. It's an exceptional Racing is an exceptional activity, and it's participated in by exceptional people. Whether it's the drivers, whether it's the pit crew members that run out there in front of cars going freeway speed to change tires, whether it's even the team owners. I mean, it's a dramatically different business model, especially when you don't have the charter system in the Xfinity Series, and you got to really kind of piece things together. It's an exceptional activity participated by exceptional people. And when it's broadcast as if it's ordinary, when something is just kind of like, oh, well, that happened, and then moving on, that I think is kind of disingenuous to kind of the spirit of racing in that sense. And that's what kind of irks me on that standpoint there. I think that when something big happens, it's not the biggest thing in the world because, of course, at the end of the day, it's a sport. And even motorsports are just a sport. Is it bigger than anything that's happening in world events? Of course not. That's a whole different scale of it there. But is it big within the world of sports? I would say yes, it is. And you hear so many of these great moments from, like, again, a baseball broadcast or a basketball broadcast or football. you have all these famous moments, and you could picture them in your mind, and you could hear the voice of like the commentator. That's where NASCAR really needs to get back to it. I don't know how much it's happening in like IndyCar. I don't really follow the series as closely, but NASCAR really needs to kind of get back to that. It should never be ordinary. It should never be the mundane everyday thing. These drivers put everything on the line for these moments here, and when something happens, it's not a small moment. It doesn't have to be the biggest moment. It doesn't have to be, special breaking news on a broadcast network, some other channel, but it needs to be treated as what it is in the moment. And I just need to just tick that up a little bit more. It's like this sound machine I have over here that has this knob on it there. Just we're here. Let's tick it up just a little bit more and just get it like right up to there. And I think that's it. We don't have to crank it all the way. Just get a little bit more. And I think that, I'll be happy with that, because I've been re-listening to like these old broadcasts, and and it's not in my head. There's a difference there. There's definitely a difference there, but I don't want to get wrapped around the axle on that, because I mean that's already enough on that subject there too. But that's kind of where I'm looking at that too. Let me look at some other stuff here in the results here. I got a lot of great pictures from fans this weekend, and viewers and readers and everybody else there too. I'm very pleased that there were so many people that were at the track there, and that's another thing I kind of want to talk about. That was definitely on the positive side. That track was rocking this weekend. I mean, you could see it from the broadcast. I'm sure they were sweetening a bit of the crowd audio. I know we were talking a bit about that there. I think that was that was handled um, you know I think it was kind of unnecessary, frankly. I think that they didn't need to sweeten the audio of the crowd at all if they were doing that. I think you had a situation where there were plenty of people in the stands. It looked like it was packed. It looked like everybody that was there was just having a great time. Like there was so much stuff going on. It looked like an absolute blast. I hope everybody there had a great time, and I'm glad a lot of people that follow the site and follow the streams here were at the track this weekend. I want to mention a number of them by name. I wrote them down here so I don't want to miss anybody on this. Matt Miller, first of all, on Twitter, sent some great pictures from the trucks and Xfinity races here. No Tires, Just Gas, who frequently shows up here in the chat. She provided some pictures as well. The Hamlinator on Twitter. Kyle Magda as well on Twitter. And Dante Ricci over at the Racing Experts, care of Dominic Aragon, who was sending some pictures to me as well this weekend. Thank you to all of them for providing some great pictures. Several of them I used in the Truck Series and Xfinity articles. I have a couple more for the Cup Series race here today with Josh Bilicki, again, pending the results of post-race inspection. Big thanks to all of them on that. I think that really added to the coverage. I love it when people send pictures of what's happening at the back of the field, whether it's a rare paint scheme or a rare moment when a driver is towed behind the wall or the crew's working on it. It really does, a picture does really speak 1,000 words, and it really kind of helps add something more to these articles there. So I appreciate those guys for doing that, and anybody else that's able to, you can either reach me out to me on DM or my email address on the website there. Those are the best ways to reach me. If you're at the track and you catch some last place action, send it over to me. I'm always happy to see it and cover it there, because it really adds something to the articles. Everything's very visual today. I know not a lot of people do websites these days. It's all the social media aspect. But the pictures, I think, are the kind of bridge there that kind of have that too. So thank you guys for that there as well. Let's see. Looking through. Wait a minute. Okay. They actually did. What? We have a call? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, folks. Uh-oh. we might have I mean, I just talked about like things not being breaking news. Things might have turned to breaking news here all of a sudden. Thank you so much for oh my gosh, Justin Malios, like I'm just about to hit publish on my recap. Oh dear. Are you are you whoa. Okay. Well, I'm so glad I didn't end the show any earlier. I wasn't planning on. We haven't even talked about the truck series. So let's jump over. Oh dear. Are you are you serious? Are you Yahoo serious here? Well, and of course, in full declaration, I am wearing my 2015 Kyle Busch shirt, not just because it was the M&M's 400, but because I picked Kyle Busch in our fantasy league, and my last bro picked Ross Chastain. So I'm like, yes, I'm gonna have like a huge point swing. I'm gonna have like a 40-point swing today. And what happens? According to Bob Bacchus here, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch have both been disqualified from the Cup Series race today. The first and second place finisher, both of them. The race for the lead, that was between 7/10 of a second and a full second. It means nothing. Means nothing at all. And who wins? We just talked about Chase Elliott, and how he wasn't really a factor in this. And isn't this great for Joe Gibbs? Well, throw that out the window. Chase Elliott is a winner of the race today. Chase Elliott winning in Atlanta. Double DQ after a double DQ in the Xfinity Series last week. Now we have our first double DQ in a Cup Series points race since the 1960 Coca-Cola 600 or the 2017 race 1 of the duels, if you want to count that, because it's technically his points for part of the field. But strictly speaking, for a long race, okay, well, let me get my, okay, well, I got to do a couple things. So, all right. So Josh Bilicki still only has one last place finish, pending the results of this. Of course, are they going to appeal this? Oh my goodness. Alrighty. Well, let me put my last change graphic up here. Okay, hang on. I gotta do another thing too. Do I still have this open? Okay. Oh shoot. Oh, that's right. This text thing was screwing with me. Let me fix this. Alrighty. Hang on, folks. I didn't freeze this layer, did I? Come on. It keeps trying to create a new layer. I hate when it does that. Does it let me do this? Oh, this is like, what the heck is it doing that for? Okay, hang on. We gotta create. I'm gonna open another. Oh, maybe this is. Okay, no, that's not it. Let me open this again. Hang on here, folks. We gotta fix this. See, this is, while I'm doing this, I'll say, this is extremely disruptive. I mean, when it comes to these disqualifications, I always hope like, oh man, this would be great. I'll have the article all done, and I could just kind of put it in the back pocket, and I'll post it, and then, we'll just kind of do that. Nah, but it doesn't add that much time. It usually adds about an hour. It adds about an hour to kind of get it polished. And the other thing you'll notice is that on the website, I don't usually update the last car statistics or the championship statistics until we get the official declaration on that. And I certainly don't post the article until we get that, because that's a big enough mistake already. I did that in 2017 with those qualifying races. Of course, that was when I was working night shift, so I think that was the biggest reason that kind of slipped through the cracks there. Let's see here. Okay, I need my graphics. Where's my graphics? Yeah, why is it like that? That's silly. Yeah, ready. Well, let's do this. Let's do this. We're going to duplicate. We're going to do this. I'm very happy with this newer upgrade of Photoshop. It's much better than, I'm used to using CS3, like the much older one. But there we go. And wow. I mean, this is gonna be one of the things. I mean, okay, they took a win away, and they took a second place finisher away here too. I mean, this is interesting. Alrighty. Well, alrighty. So, yeah, you get a little look behind the scenes here. This is all right. Okay. Well, so that would put Kyle Busch in last because he's lower classified of the two. Oh my God. Last Bro is going to have an absolute field day with this. He's probably going to bookmark this video. I don't know if he's in the chat right now. He probably is. I don't know. I'll see. If you're in here, man, let me know, because I'm sure you were. Oh, he's going to destroy me with this. Okay. Well, alrighty. Well, first and foremost, let me do this and fix this here. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Beast of Metal. I have a couple of yours I need to really read. I know one of them gave me the heads up on here. So let's get this here and whoop. There we go. So we'll fix that. All right, we got that fixed. So we got that. We'll keep it in the Denny colors because I think that'll be funnier. So okay, well, okay, well, let me get you some what failed. I'm not seeing this yet. Pockris just said that the disqualified. I'm not seeing the reason yet. Chase Elliott is the winner of the race today. Hamlin and Kyle Busch cars have been disqualified. Must have been too low because these cars always seem to have the situation. Okay, and I'm seeing. Okay, my Twitter's blowing up here. Any info? What's going on with this? Yeah, news to me. Both Denny and Kyle Busch's cars have been disqualified. Chase's. Okay, I'm not seeing any other. Let's see. Very far. That are 2 or more disqualified. Let's see. That would Seth Eggert asking me about the 1960 World 600. I think that would be, yeah, that would be correct. And just after the double DQ in the Xfinity Series last week, we are truly living in exceptional times. That sounds a little sarcastic, but last place times. There you go. So there you go. Yeah, did Pockris get hacked? Oh, I don't know. Everybody else is tweeting it. Seth Eggert tweeted it too. So it's not just Pockris. Everybody else is talking about it. So I don't think it's. Let's see. What's trending now? Or is Elliott trending on Twitter? The Penske is still trending on Twitter. There you go. I like everybody using the Denny Hamlin. Yeah, NASCAR's own Twitter feed 2 minutes ago. News: the numbers 11 and 18 have been disqualified following post-race inspection at Pocono. Chase Elliott has been declared the winner of today's race. This is why we had audio problems. There was a disturbance in the matrix, and it kind of rippled through everything. And then it had to do the show this much later to make sure that we had the announcement on here. So I guess that's why we had to have this here tonight, folks. Glad we had that at the very least. I don't know. Okay, well, let's. Alrighty. Well, let me get some statistics. Well, I'm gonna have to dig out my other stats. Let me get my stat pages on the fly, and we'll do some more stats here. We just finished our Cup and our Xfinity. We haven't got to the trucks and poor old Todd Bodine. I want to talk about that too. We're still gonna do that, but we're gonna have to do that after all this. I'm doing all the hand gestures today, so we're gonna get this. That's a kick in the seat in the points. I thought for sure, because when Denny wrecked Ross and Kyle Busch got through, I was like, wow, really dodged the bullet today. Yeah, not so much. I guess that gun had an extra bullet in it. Okay, well let's get our Denny Hamlin stats here, and we'll get some more information here. I got to pull the article out, and we'll just do it on the show. Why the heck not? I mean, hey, you guys don't mind sticking around? We'll do that. We'll definitely talk about. We got to talk about we haven't talked about the other news stories. We haven't talked about the Truck Series yet, but we definitely got to address this for sure. This one definitely unseats it here. So for Kyle Busch would be last. Wow. That sucks. I mean, I gotta say. I mean, Kyle Busch getting disqualified for the M&M's race is not something I had on my bingo card today. I guess he had some legal M&Ms. I guess it melted on the track. Kyle Busch, this would be his 9th last place finish in a Cup Series race. 9th last place finish in a Cup Series race. His last 2 have come at New Hampshire. The last 2 before that came at Michigan. He finished last at Pocono on June 8th of 2008. He was in a crash after 95 laps. That was his first last place finish in the M&M's car. So you got that statistic going for you here. Yes, his first last place finish was Atlanta in 2004 when he was still a part-timer. But Kyle Busch would have 9 last place finishes, including 7 of them in the number 18 car. And yeah, potentially right back to where it started then. So that would be the first statistic there. Let me get, where's the article? Let's see, Balicki article. I mean, the thing that's advantage with this is like basically I write everything that happened, and they say, but this happened. And this is also the thing too. The biography section of the driver, I usually don't do that because in case this happens, I'm just gonna have to save that in another folder and use it later. And sometimes I forget to do that, so I don't put that in the article. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, this was gonna be the 77's first last place run since 2014 with Dave Blaney. I think that 2008 run with Kyle would be wow. Wow. Joe Gibbs is not going to be happy today. Um the teams turn around and then wow. That is a gut punch. I mean, well, okay. Well, let's look at it positively. Ty Gibbs got two of those spots back that he lost at the end, so now he's back to 16th after finishing 18th. So yeah, he's back to where almost was. Bubba Wallace gets an 8th place finish, so you get that run too. So some of the other teams are going to benefit from this. Um, let's see. Let's see. Okay, Kyle Busch. That's his 9th last place finish. Toyota disqualified. This marked the first last place finish at Pocono for Kyle Busch since, yeah, the 2008 one. June. Well, this show's just flipped off the rails. Well, we're going into extra innings, folks. I hope you don't mind. But we do have to do that. In 2008, when his number 18 M&M's Toyota crashed out after 95 laps. This, incidentally, this was Busch's first last place finish in the M&M's with sponsorship. Let's see, in the number 18 for Joe Gibbs. Oh, first in the number 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing. And his first with sponsorship. I can really, this is the other fun part too, with the last place finish thing. I have to admit, one thing that's always interesting, you never know who's going to finish last. Today is a perfect example of that. But the other thing is you can kind of try to come up with a really poetic way to describe it. This one writes itself. I mean, I pretty much can just kind of bookmark this here and be like, well, yeah, I mean, Kyle Busch finishes last in the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400. I mean, my goodness, there should be a shirt made for this. Like, this is astounding. Um, oh my goodness. I am so glad I didn't pick Denny to win this race. I'm less upset at that. Although this still is going to be a kick in the seat because I'm going to actually lose points to Lastbro because I think he got some decent points because he wouldn't even get the stage points that he got because he won one of the stages. He wouldn't even get that. So that moves everybody else up. That means that moves Ross up. Okay, now I am still pretty upset about this because it is going to be kind of a problem. Luckily, the Christopher Bell win put me up pretty good last week, but this is going to be kind of an issue here. So let's see. First, with sponsorship from M&M's. Okay, so I got that. Alrighty. So, yeah, 9 last place finishes in the Cup Series for Kyle Busch. His first since New Hampshire last year when they had the rain fall on the track and he finished in last before the race restarted. His last 4 last place finishes have all been in Michigan or New Hampshire in consecutive races. And yeah, so Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin both disqualified from the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400 race at Pocono today. Kyle Busch, your last place finisher. Denny Hamlin next to last in the running order. Josh Bilicki passes 2 cars after he wrecked on lap 35 in the number 77 car. So I guess maybe that helps Spire a little bit. They're going to get a couple more points, but not sure where else that works out. Let me look at disqualification results. Well, let's see. Let me look first at, we're going to pull up some more stats for you guys here tonight. And we're going to do, oh my gosh, I don't see Lastbro in the chat here yet, but I'm sure he's watching. He's probably lurking on here. This is just insane. Oh, we're up to 98 viewers. Well, I guess there's some advantage there too. So there you go. Oh, I was looking forward to after the show, and I was gonna crunch the numbers and see how many points I would have been ahead of Lastbro there. But now it's not good. It's not good, folks. Yeah, number 18. That's the most recent last place finish. It was also the most recent. I'll have to redraft this later. Last place finish for the number 18 in a cup race at Pocono. Okay, so that is correct. Before that, here's another one for you guys. Before 2008, the number 18 hadn't finished last in a cup race at Pocono since Bobby Labonte on June 16th, 1996 in the Interstate Batteries car. There's actually a streak of, that was only the second time the 18 finished last. This is only the fourth time in the history of Pocono that I gotta write this down. This is only the fourth time the number 18 has finished last in a cup race at Pocono. All right. Well, alrighty. So yeah, the middle part of the article is going to be front fascia was the issue. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. They don't tell me they put tape on there again like they did at Richmond. I didn't see anything like that, but that would be interesting. Yeah, see Byron. Yeah, Byron, you got your Brian. You got the same thought I did. Okay, let's see here. Let's get Pocono. Let's get Q. And it had to be Chase Elliott. Oh, of course it did. How close wasn't Tyler Reddick really close to getting third from Chase at the end of that? Like, he seemed like he was right up there in the mix. Stinks for him. First disqualification. First last place by disqualification. This is the first last place finish by disqualification for a cup race at Pocono. There were two did not starts. One by the late Rich Vogler. He wasn't able to start there because he had his accident happen the night before. But Mike Skinner in 1992 was did not start in that. Material on front fascia. Oh, that's not good. Beast of Metal. That sounds like. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's bad. Well, you think something like that would have been picked up a lot earlier, but I suppose it hadn't been. There's already the graphic here with Chase. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is crazy. It's likely the first per NASCAR man. This is likely the first time ever for positions 1 and 2. I think so. I'll look through my other statistics on disqualifications. I might have to do some other. This might be kind of a late. I have to do some more digging on that too. As to I don't think 1 and 2 have been disqualified. Certainly race winners have been disqualified. Famously, of course, the first NASCAR race in 1949 at the Charlotte Dirt Track, Glenn Dunaway was disqualified from the first spot and classified last, and Jim Roper took the win. That was Bill Maher's live look at me. Yeah, it's not too far off. If I had 8 papers to throw around, I would. My goodness, it starts with let's see. Affect error on the vehicle. Issues with this. Could be allowing for appeal. Could be allowing for appeal. But yeah. Well, I mean, if the okay. All right. Well, they've been disqualified for something on the front of the car. I mean, they could appeal it, but if they've been found to have like the stuff on the front of the car, that seems pretty conclusive. This isn't something where it's like the car settles down and you could say like, oh well, I mean the car, it settled after a while on the suspension. This seems like this would be a harder one to appeal because it seemed like it's pretty. But then again, if it's so upfront, I mean, this looks like it's just broken in the last 5 minutes here. So yeah, luckily the storm cleared in Pocono, so we had that too. So hopefully people at least are traveling from the track pretty well there. Yeah, we're gonna have to dig up some, get a picture. I had a pretty good picture from our folks over at the racing experts there on that. NASCAR, Kelly Crandall tweeting this 4 minutes ago. NASCAR says this is an appealable disqualification, so won't be many details. The infraction was with the arrow in the front fascia. There was really no reason why there was material there shouldn't have been, says the Cup Series managing director Brad Moran. Both cars are headed to R&D. Well, that'll be revealing. This means McDowell will now get qualified for a sixth place. Consistency gets better, says ARCA starting park cars, Colby Evans. Um, yeah, no, I mean, it's okay. How'd they miss that during pre-race inspections? It must have happened during the race. They must have, it must be what happened at Richmond again. They must have had something where they slapped something on there. Um, that is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Um, uh, let's see. I'm gonna drop a link to the chat here. It's like, hey, if you guys want to, let me get this cut. Here we go. Let me place this here. Still in the stream. If you guys want to talk about the double DQ today, just turned into just put that there. I always say something. I always worry about the second sentence I put in a tweet because it's probably going to be something that's just going to tick somebody off. All right, here we go. Boop, and put that in there. Let's see. Yeah, is it possible to screenshot that red dot in 11? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. Well, yeah. So okay, so first, so those of you tuning in here a little bit later, we got 100 viewers in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Kyle Busch, and of course, I feel like I've you hear about the guys that were Atlanta Falcons fans. That there was a story on that John Boy's video where the guys felt like he affected the outcome of Super Bowl 51 because he wasn't wearing the shoes that he wore during the playoff run. Now here I am sitting here on the stream here tonight wearing my Kyle Busch crispy M&M shirt from 2015 and just being told that he, who I had picked to win the race today, and ultimately was pretty happy with finishing in the second spot in our picks of the week competition with Last Bro over here because he picked Ross Chastain. I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not at the bottom of the field where he was. Of course, getting the news now that in the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400, that both Kyle Busch and his teammate Denny Hamlin, who pulled off the victory today or seemed to, have now been disqualified for something on the front fascia of both cars, which is a level 10 screw up, I would say, on the part of the Joe Gibbs racing team, and has immediately resulted in a appealable, though immediate, disqualification that has now handed the victory over to Chase Elliott, who didn't really need anything to kind of help go his way, given how strong he's been these last few weeks. When his worst run seems to be a second place finish, even in his battle against Christopher Bell last week. Now all of a sudden, or I guess that was that second or was that third last week? He was right up there. Now it seems that he is now pulled off a pretty improbable race at win at Pocono at a track where he's actually finished last before himself. He had a wreck here not too long ago that dropped him in the back of the field. This would be the first last place finish for Kyle Busch since last year at New Hampshire, when the race was it was raining at the start, and he slid into the wall with him and his teammate Martin Truex. His first at Pocono since 2008, which was his first last place run with the number 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, and his first last place run with the M&M's car, if you can believe that. And I'm trying to remember if he was in a backup car or something, but I remember he had some kind of wreck on the front stretch that took him out in that one. So he was in the back of the field in that deal. First last place run by disqualification at Pocono. I think I mentioned that already. Well, I guess that would set the record for most laps complete by a last place finisher. In fact, the Dave Blaney had completed 142 of 160 laps in 2014, and he was originally going to be the statistic for tonight because Josh Bilicki was originally your last place finisher with a very hard hit in turn one, and it dropped out of the race there after knocking the wall down there. Luckily to see him get out of the car. But the 77 car was going to be your last place finisher with just 35 laps complete. But in this one here, apparently after finishing on the lead lap in 160 of the 160 laps complete, the most you can complete, unless of course it goes into overtime for a future race, seems to have set the new record on that front there as well. Let me confirm that here. I want to get that. Let's see, I got this here, kind of going through spreadsheets and everything as we go through here and deleting some of the Balicki material. As I mentioned on the show here just a few minutes ago, this has now kept Josh Balicki from getting his second career last place finish in the Cup Series. He was originally going to be your last place finisher for the second time in his career. His first was just last year at Kansas, came back around to this year. It would have been his first in the 77 car. That is now apparently out the window, pending, of course, the results of a possible switch there. We have had situations where an appealed last place finish has changed things. Of course, Noah Gragson at Darlington last year won a successful appeal. I believe that was for a minimum heights issue, so that was a bit of a different set of circumstances there. But that ultimately created a situation where the Matt Mills ended up getting the last place finish again. A final last change, I believe, was on the Wednesday after that race. Not sure if that's going to be the same timetable here with now two drivers that are now also getting their cars sent to R&D, both the Hamlin race-winning car and the second place Kyle Busch machine. Those cars going to technical inspection here, or rather going to research and development here. So, yeah. Chase Elliott with the unofficial victory here. I was looking at the laps complete. Yes, indeed, the previous record, this pretty much goes without saying here, is the new record for most laps complete. I do have my article in the other window here. Complete by the Cup Series last place finisher at Pocono. Besting the 142 by Dave Blaney. That's when he was driving for Randy Humphrey back then. So I could at least save that stat and kind of use it just in a different way. Sometimes it's a matter of cannibalizing statistics here and kind of using them differently. Okay, let me get that put up here. Kyle Busch. Let's see here. Yeah, rest of the bottom. So that takes 2 spots out of the bottom 5. This is also going to potentially shake up the NASCAR championship. We haven't really talked about that. So when you had the initial race results, it's interesting, Racing Reference still doesn't actually have the Xfinity results. I've had to kind of pull that up from J-Ski here on the show tonight. Let's see. That's kind of small. Let me get this pulled up here. Yes, so in the bottom 5, it was originally going to be Balicki, Blaney, Chastain, Cindric, and BJ McLeod. BJ, of course, still the leader in the NASCAR Cup Series championship here with 3 last place finishes, including the last 2 in a row. That has absolutely changed here. He wasn't actually in last. He finished 32nd in this race. Chris Buescher, J.J. Yaley, Kevin Harvick, Cody Ware, and Todd Gilliland were going to be your bottom 10. So this has now taken away a bottom 10 finish from both Todd Gilliland and Cody Ware, who were 27th and 28th. And then it has also taken away a bottom 5 finish from both BJ McLeod and Austin Cindric, who were 32nd and 33rd. So a bit of a changing in that. I haven't posted the official results on that yet, but we'll get that up. And of course, if things change after that fact, we'll certainly take that into consideration. If there is indeed an appeal on this, I'm not sure if that's going to be the situation. But this is certainly, this is racing, folks. This is NASCAR racing, and this is part of the picture. This is part of what ends up happening here. So that's certainly a possibility. We had just, for those of you just tuning into the show here, we had just finished our discussion of both the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series race, really just about to springboard into the Truck Series race here, when you guys were notifying me about the change here in the results. Again, showing that both Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch disqualified, dropping into the bottom 2 positions out there for this. And yes, Bob Pockrass looks like just posting the newer updated results here, confirming again Kyle Busch placed in the last place spot in the M&M's Toyota after leading 3 times for 63 laps. Denny Hamlin led twice for 21 laps. Both of them will not get credit for finishing first and second. Chase Elliott will be your winner now over Tyler Reddick. Daniel Suarez improves to the 3rd spot. Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson improve to getting top 5 finishes, and improving to getting top 10 finishes are Eric Jones and Austin Dillon. So again, the strategy for Dillon and Jones having a breakout run, they get to enjoy the benefit of having a good finish here. Again, pending the results of now a potential appeal for both of these things. But if with this particular penalty, again, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to handle that. I'm sure the argument is probably going to be whether it's debris or it's tape, or who put it on there. I'm sure they're going to look at the results and see what the situation is. If somebody had actually intentionally put tape on there, because that seemed to be the situation back at Richmond. I believe it was with Kyle Busch on that race. So not sure how that's going to shake out, but that's going to be interesting, to say the least. So that has certainly jumbled things up there at the front of the field, not the least of which having Chase Elliott in the win. I got to save this copy of the results. Yeah, I'm not going to text last, bro. I'm just going to tell him. That would be pretty fun. If he stumbles in here in the thing, I'll tell him. But he usually doesn't come by here during the show. Let's see. Ty Gibbs finishes 18th in his Cup Series debut. Yeah, there you go. They're now finishing in the 16th spot. Sir Wrinklestein, oh man, I know he was tore up there. Sir Wrinklestein, are one of the longer viewers in here. I know he's excited to be able to see Denny Hamlin win in person. I hate that unfortunate circumstances here, but he says I'm still going to consider this a Denny win. I don't care. Well, at least he got to have the celebration of the victory there at the same time. So I don't know. I wonder if the thing that was on the front of Hamlin's car was a piece of Ross Chastain's car, but yeah, not exactly sure at the same case here. Does NASCAR, let's see, this posted 3 minutes ago by Chris Knight. NASCAR confirms that Chase Elliott's car was inspected before being determined the winner, for any of you that were wondering. So again, the top three were inspected. And again, the lowest, and pretty much under those NASCAR rules, the lowest class, or the highest classified car that clears inspection, it just becomes hot potato until it goes to somebody, which tells me that for at least one glimmering moment, Kyle Busch potentially could have won this race. I assume Denny's car went through inspection first, and maybe he got blocked off, and then it went to Kyle. And so maybe there was about maybe a 30-second gap. It took it long for them to look at the front of the 18 car that he technically had the win, and then things changed again. So he had a couple of win changes and a couple of last place changes here, and ultimately the result is the same. Chase Elliott with the victory at Pocono. His car did get through. Did get through inspection, and they're kind of hustling up. Excuse me, man. I need more code red to get through this one. He had more situations there with the back of the field. So yeah, that would be 4 wins for Chase Elliott. 2 wins now for Denny Hamlin, drops him back to the 5th seed here. Chase Elliott moves up to, well, he stays in the number 1 seed ahead of Ross Chastain there. Yeah, my goodness. The sweet taste of victory in M&Ms, and then they have the link here from Pocono showing the result of technical inspection there too. Alrighty. So now do the 2 cars behind Elliott get inspected since they're now 2nd and 3rd? Not sure entirely. I mean, it's got to end at some point, and I imagine that's probably not going to change at this point. But yeah, so that's yeah, that's not too much fun there. Yeah, I see people mention 1991 at Sears Point. Yeah, technically, I mean that was a black flag. That was one that was just a complete mess. I think a technical inspection situation. We're talking where the driver actually is given the checkered flag. In that case, yeah, Rudd wasn't even given the checkered flag, so that was kind of a different situation there. But yeah. Is Chase Elliott the first race winner to never lead a single lap of the race? Good question. This being posted by Lost Crashes on Twitter, NASCAR Forgotten Crashes. That's a good. Yeah, I'm kind of with NASCAR man on that. I'm not sure on that. Oh my goodness, everybody! So many deletions, so many corrections, so many everything else here. But this is the fun part. I mean, it's again not fun. I'm sure for Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch here, especially in the sponsors race. I think that's downright embarrassing. Especially, I mean, again, we'll hopefully get some more information on this. But if it turned out to be something really stupid, where they were just literally putting something on the front fascia, I don't know if that was it, but I'm sure they're gonna really, really look at that footage of those pit stops and find out what it is here. What was the first chat on this? Let me look here. Either tape or illegal construction. Material on the front fascia. Where's the earliest? Where was the earliest message on this? I got to see this. McDowell gets a 6. It seems like you guys were. I mean, I appreciate the super chat there, Beast Metal. You didn't have to do that, but it definitely did draw my eye to the screen here. Kyle Foster, I see your message there on the last change. I took out the 1, but at what cost? This is something I'll never forget. Yeah, there you go. Perfect title. Yeah, there you go. Disqualification for what? Oh my goodness, I can't even scroll it up far enough for this. Charter system. Yep, I'm with you, Michael, on the getting rid of the charter system and 50 cars entered. Yeah, Anthony Blaylock, I see your comment. I think you were the first one on it. Denny and Kyle Busch cars DQ'd. Chase Elliott is the winner. Chase Elliott has won the race. Yeah, and then yeah, Beast Metal, I saw your comment. Shortly after that. Well, so okay. Well, I think at this point, I mean, I've probably beaten the horse plenty here. We can go into our discussion on the Truck Series race and the Xfinity. We already did Xfinity. We haven't done trivia yet. If you guys want to stick around for that, if you guys have any other thoughts or any other questions on this very exceptional double DQ on the Behind the Wall show here for tonight, definitely leave it in the comments there, and we'll definitely talk about that as well. But in the meantime, we'll get the other part here. Let me get the super chats here. The Beast of Metal left here as well. And thank you for both of these here. Beast of Metal, first one you mentioned earlier, NASCAR should have known about the frame rigidity. The issue in the modifieds was commonly cited as the leading factor in Richie Evans' death and the immediate aftermath. They found BSF signs years later. Yeah, so again, the rigidity of the cars, I mean, this kind of goes to what we were talking about a little bit earlier in the show tonight about the issue with Kurt Busch's accident. Certainly, again, hoping that he's doing okay as he recovers from the concussion-like symptoms. But we'll certainly, find out what's happening with him. And of course, Josh Bilicki is still after his accident. I think that's another one to look at. Although, again, if the door bumper clear discussion that was mentioned in the chat here is certainly to be looked at, it seems like, minor incidents seem to have more severe results, and that was probably the reason that Kurt Busch's one was there too. But thank you for the super chat there, Beast of Metal, for mentioning that at the same time. This also, again, the super chat that also drew was on the discussion here with the results of the post-race inspection. Thank you again, Beast of Metal, on this here too. Breaking, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch have been disqualified. Chase Elliott has now scored as winner of the 2022 M&M's Fan Appreciation 400. Opinion, they actually did it. They disqualified superstars in their prime. Holy blank. Yeah, have to agree. I think that's I think if anybody had that on their bingo card, they would certainly be lying. Although Lastbro, I'm sure, was certainly hoping for it with his pick of Ross Chastain in the race here today. But yeah, a very interesting set of circumstances here from that. But thank you for both the super chats there for sure there, Beast of Metal. Alrighty. So yeah, we're going to get some more update. We're going to get an update on the article here tonight. So it will not be a Josh Bilicki article. It will be a Kyle Busch article. And again, the for those of you just coming in here a little bit later, we got 122 people here. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. If there is a change in post-race inspection, if there is an appeal to the disqualification to either of them, that will be changed in the article whenever that does happen. That would come up later on in the week. In the case of certainly Noah Gragson last year, Darlington, that was kind of discussed earlier. That would be another one to certainly talk about too. Pat Acuna, thank you for your super chat as well. Huge win for legitimate officiating. Unprecedented move. It makes you believe that the guys in charge are at least trying to put on a clean show. Fair point. Fair point. I think things would have certainly looked with. I'm sure Kyle Busch's team was throwing everything they had at it to try to win this race, and knowing that it was representative of it's a track that not only he's good at, but also a track with his title sponsor in there. That probably had a factor into it. It's unfortunate that this played out this way. I hate it for both the teams, but these things do happen, and the rules are rules, and NASCAR seemed pretty open and shut, especially when they talked with Mr. Moran there in his pre-race deal there. So that would be a different situation. Is this going to be a 4-race suspension for the crew chiefs? Good question. I'm not sure if this falls under the same parameters as what we had with the Petty GMS team, that they already had an L1 infraction coming into this race, and that caused them to not have their crew chiefs for this weekend and a 35 points penalty. I guess that's the other thing you got to look at here too. Is this going to be any kind of disqual? There's going to be any other penalties on top of it? It's a good question. I don't know. I think anything's on the table at this point. I think it could be a problem, one way or the other. It's going to be kind of an issue. I'm glad the graphic in the background kind of looks like Chase Elliott's car, although it's got the purple there with a difference. But so that's kind of the other situation. But yeah, so go figure. I think that's a different one there too. Not sure how that's going to play out, but if there are any other additional penalties that are going to be handed down, I'm sure NASCAR is going to be pretty upfront about that coming forward here too. I want to get into the Truck Series race here too. Big thing that I want to kind of hit on that. We talked about the Xfinity Series part here earlier in the show before the inspection results came out here for the Cup Series. But I want to definitely talk about Todd Bodine and the 800 start there and the unfortunate way that ended up happening at the end of it there. I had a couple earlier incidents there. Both Dean Thompson and Jack Wood spun out, didn't hit anything. Had an exchange for last place there between those two drivers. The streak of 9 consecutive last place finishers looked to keep going. There were 13 different drivers that were potentially going to be in position to keep that streak going. Neither Jack Wood nor Dean Thompson, who is actually Thompson still being the leader in the NASCAR Truck Series championship standings, neither of them would have kept the streak going. Fortunately, they kept going. Later on, Todd Bodine goes into turn 1, and he's running, mid-pack there, gets in an incident with Hailie Deegan. Deegan looked like she was trying to find a hole between Bodine and Timmy Hill. Timmy Hill just washed up a track. Unfortunately, the hole kind of closed up, and you had about 4 trucks in space where you could barely get 2 through there, and Todd Bodine was unfortunately the link that got spun into the outside wall. Tyler Hill slid into the wreck. Seemed like for a moment that Tyler was going to be your last place finisher, which would have given us a record 10 first-time last-place finishers in the Truck Series. And the team, in fact, did try to get some repairs and get him back out there. Todd Bodine's team, as well as Jack Wood's team. Jack Wood actually got some more damage in that wreck as well. Wood briefly had last, then Tyler Hill, and then ultimately Todd Bodine, who pulled behind the wall in his 800 start. Very emotional interview that he had in the broadcast there. Kudos to Josh Sims for getting the interview. I know he kind of mentioned the possibility of doing 801 starts, not wanting, maybe do some more races there. But again, I thought, Todd, just a great guy. I think, he gave a great interview with me back at Sears Point. I really enjoyed listening to his interview on the Scene Vault podcast this week, which has been on there. I thought he did a fine job on that. Just hate to see it turn out that way. Certainly in the article, the goal was then to kind of talk more about his last place finish, but also the career that predated it, including the races that he had earlier this year, and kind of touched on elements of that there too, and included his interview in that article there. So that's already been posted, as well as Raja Carruth's article for the Xfinity Series race yesterday. Both of those already posted on there. The Kyle Busch article will be later tonight. But the race win, Chandler Smith, pretty dominating victory there. Ryan Preece in the second spot. John Hunter Nemechek in third. Corey Heim fourth. Carson Hocevar rounding out the top 5 as the series completed its last race of the regular season. Derek Kraus finishes the 9th spot, comes up just short of beating Matt Crafton to get into the playoffs there. Unfortunately, doesn't quite work out for him, and he had a different set of circumstances for him. Zane Smith with all kind of situations there finishes in the 13th spot. Todd Bodine's wreck actually secured Zane Smith the regular season championship. Very good accomplishment for both him and the Front Row Motorsports effort. I know there were a lot of questions about him switching teams, given how strong Zane had performed at the end of last year for GMS Racing. He certainly made the absolute most out of that 38 effort, and a good effort for him there at the same time too. Bottom 5 finishers end up being Todd Bodine, with only his second last place finishes first since 2005 at Fontana, which is in February of 2005. We almost had 3 drivers with their second last place finish, but of course that has now since changed with Kyle Busch's disqualification. Jack Wood, Josh Riam, Hailie Deegan, and Spencer Boyd rounding out the bottom 5. Jack Wood ultimately out actually with the DVP, completed some more laps before he was cleared out of the race. and brake issues for Haley Deegan dropped her out. Josh Riam had issues with the brake rotors on the number 33, but ultimately did not take him out of the race. A different set of circumstances for them. And Armani Williams, Tyler Hill, Blaine Perkins, Timmy Hill, and Chris Wright round out your bottom 10 finishers in the Truck Series race. So next week we have the rest of the races over at the Indianapolis Infield Road Course. And things have changed quite a bit since even we started the show here earlier this evening. So again, for those late coming in here, of course, the news broken about, I believe now about 20 minutes ago at least, that both race winner Denny Hamlin, winner of the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400, was disqualified for a infraction relating to the front fascia. Kyle Busch as well, the second place finisher, also disqualified. Third place finisher Chase Elliott, who just held off Tyler Reddick at the finish, has inherited the win, his fourth of the season, further asserting his number one spot in the overall playoff standings as the only four-time winner this year. And now apparently has quite suddenly thrown himself into a situation where he's kind of like where teammate Kyle Larson was last year. Larson's wins didn't really come out this way, but it's certainly been that set of circumstances. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, big weekend of racing coming up here. The Indianapolis Raceway Park return for the Truck Series. Thank you for mentioning that there, Snotslinger. Not a pejorative, that's his username, so we got that there too. So the Truck Series kicking off the weekend, and then of course the Xfinity and the Cup Series races at the Indianapolis Road Course combination weekend with the IndyCar Series. Big weekend of activity out there. I missed the Brickyard 400, perfectly honest, but I know that things have changed quite a bit. I think that the current Cup car would actually handle the Brickyard pretty well, but maybe it's for the best interest here with the issues with the wreck that you had with Kurt Busch there in the Pocono race here earlier this weekend. So hopefully we'll see what's going to be happening this next weekend at the same time. Let's see here. I think that's most. Before we had the results here from this. You're going to IRP? Excellent. Cool. Well, yeah, if you get some good pictures, Snotslinger, of the last place finishers there, definitely let me know. You know how to reach me there for sure. Again, big thanks to everybody that was contributing pictures this weekend. We got some great fan pictures, and a lot of people sound like they had a fantastic time there. Big thanks to NASCAR Man. Just posted this 43 seconds ago. Did a little digging. The December 1955 race at West Palm Beach had the top two finishers disqualified. So this is not the first time the top two finishers were disqualified from a Cup Series race. So this is dating back to December 11th, 1955 on that. Let me get my stats up here as well. I needed to pull that up here. And let's get the letter Q. Let me get this. Get that column. And pull the disqualification section here. 1 of 3. Okay. Is that West Palm Beach? That's 58. That's 55. That must be this. Wait, which one is this? Nope, not that one. That must be here. Jim Reed. Okay, I didn't have an indicator for that one. 2 straight DNQs. There have been other incidents. 1960 had 6 drivers disqualified for the improper pit entry in the 1960s World 600. There was also a race at the NBS. Which is that? New Brunswick. Which team was that? I have initials here to kind of expedite things on this. The New Bradford Speedway in Pennsylvania, incidentally, had 3 drivers disqualified in that race, and that was in the New Bradford, Pennsylvania Speedway on June 12th, 1958. 3 drivers were disqualified from that event, including Emery Mann, who was disqualified in that one and classified last. 2 straight disqualifications for Jim Reed in 1955, but those were before those. I need to check. Let's see. Unfortunately, I'm glad NASCAR Man has his copies of 40 Years of Stock Car Racing by Greg Fielden available. I know I have mine around somewhere, but I don't remember where the heck I put them. I need to dig those up because I was looking for those at the Road America race last year, and that track was getting back on the series. but unfortunately I couldn't find those. But yeah, I think that, let's see here. Let me get this one pulled up. Getting 58. Pulling this up here. June 12th. There you go, Bradford. Yes, Dean Layfield, Squirt Johns. Squirt Johns? Wow. Okay. From Brockaway, Pennsylvania. One of only 2 Cup starts that Squirt Johns had. Dean Layfield, Squirt Johns, and Emery Mann were all disqualified from the 1958 race at New Bradford Speedway. I'm not sure. I mean, let me say this again. I missed the comment section on Racing Reference because then I'd be able to verify this right away because people are pretty reliable with that information on there. Unfortunately, I can't pull that up. I need to still dig that up there. But yes, 3 drivers were disqualified from the end of that race there, and were classified 19th, 20th, and 21st. They started 16th, 5th, and 18th in the 21 car field. So it's possible that maybe they were running further back in the lineup. None of them were credited with the number of laps they completed, which you usually see in disqualifications today. They actually show the number of laps. But this would be another potential candidate, maybe a more recent one since the 1955 race for the top 2 finishers were disqualified. I think this could be a potential one here as well. Let me mention this one here as well. Let me get that on here and pull this out. Led 47 laps. Yeah, Jim Roper in the first race. Looking. Great find. I'm also looking for Speedway. Were disqualified. Where they originally crossed the finish line. It's time for the world to discover Squirt Johns. Where 3 drivers were disqualified. Let's see. And NASCAR man, I'm sure will look up his. It'd be quicker for him to find it on his copy of the book there too. So hopefully we can get that information. Cup win was revoked by disqualification. Yeah, Manuel Zervakis in 1960, April 17th, 1960 at the Wilson Speedway. Cup Series win was revoked by disqualification, but was he classified last in that one? I think he was. Yeah. Let's see. Last time race winner disqualified. Yeah, it shows him as the pole sitter, so that's probably more likely. Probably less likely had cars that were further back in the lineup. I think that one with the 3 drivers might be a different situation. So yeah, so we got some good stuff here. Let's see here. Does Denny wrecking Ross count if Ross still finishes ahead of him? Says Dave Moody. Yeah, see, there you go. That's a whole other one too. There you go, Johnny. Yeah, I get your frustration for sure, man. Yeah, that'll be another one. Okay, yeah. So hopefully this will be another one to kind of look at here too. So I'm gonna keep that page up. This will be something else I'll probably do a little bit more digging on before posting the article tonight. We'll kind of polish that up. I got to get the stats, of course, pulled up for Kyle here in the short term, and then get that set up here for you guys. Okay, so as I was leaving off here, again, sorry for the dead air. Let me get some more on here for you guys here. Let's see. Where are my notes on this? Okay, so kind of talking a little bit about some other big news from this week before we had the disqualification, the double disqualification, second straight week of this between the two series, top two series at least on this side here. Of course, one of the big bits of news this week was the announcement of the Chicago Street Course that was long rumored. Apparently, Chicago indicating that they had a long-standing agreement to add this track to the schedule. This now confirmed in a press conference that they had at Chicago this past week, with everybody in attendance there. Again, as I said at the time, I think one thing that NASCAR really needs to expedite to get ready for this race is to really make sure that those toe links don't break as easy as they do in these other events. I think otherwise you're going to have a pretty quick last place battle, or cars that are going to have even harder of a time trying to get back to the infield. Although I guess you could create some openings to try to get from one place to another. Although thinking about the logistics at the Clash, where it's kind of under a similar circumstance because the Coliseum is placed within a larger complex, it's almost like you're racing around that area there, and you're basically, when you had cars coming from the parking lot to the Coliseum itself, there was a lot of like really rough roads and kind of humps they had to kind of come over just to kind of get from point A to point B. I think that's going to be kind of an issue logistically in this race. Um, I don't know how good of racing it's going to produce. I think that people are going to be kind of really, really overhyping it. I think people are going to kind of set themselves up for disappointment in there. I think what you're going to have is you're going to have a very, a lot of single file racing. A lot of people getting kind of nerfing each other into the tire barriers. I do think that the outside pole sitter is probably going to be your best shot at a last place finisher, because he's probably going to brush the concrete barrier on the outside there coming into the first corner, and that might be enough to actually take him out of the race. It's just going to be a matter of how many more cars are going to be behind him there. With that, they're going to kind of change things there. Double file restarts, of course, on a street course is going to be the other big concern. Derek Cope is one of the drivers that ran West Series races on street courses, including the Tacoma Grand Prix back in the mid 80s. But those had single file restarts there too. Kind of a different set of circumstances. I don't know. I hope it's exciting. I'd love to be wrong about that. I hope it's like it can be really kind of crazy and fun and wild. Having it as a points race, especially in the regular season, and especially at the cost of Road America, I'm not that big of a fan of. I think Road America, they found something really nice up there, and doing picnics and setting up, a kind of a nice, like, kind of carnival atmosphere, kind of like a summer carnival kind of thing. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I know William, our staff writer there, speaks very highly of it. Of course, it's his home track, but he's done some great coverage, did some great coverage here this year. Would have loved to have him do it up there again next year, but unfortunately, things have now changed there, and Road America is off the schedule for next year. I think the folks at Road America are handling that very well under very difficult circumstances, better than perhaps they needed to. I can't really hardly blame them for being frustrated in that situation. But that would be another one to kind of look at the same time. Hopefully, it's a good race. I'm happy to see people excited about it. I'm certainly happy that they're bringing an event to to fans that maybe would be interested in another form of racing. It's not really opening a new demographic because, of course, we had the Chicagoland Speedway, and I still think it's kind of ridiculous to come up with this really crazy thing when you got Chicagoland sitting there. Of all the tracks that are kind of taken off the schedule or kind of moved around, I think that's one that it's kind of more debatable about. I think with at least the next gen car, it would handle that track a lot better, and you get racing like we saw at Kansas, like we saw at Las Vegas earlier this year. It's too bad they're not getting that shot at it. And again, by doing this for multiple years, at least in the planning stages, it sounds like they're not really going to get a shot at it anytime soon unless they really start changing things with the schedule. And I don't know if that's going to happen. So I'm not sure how that's going to go, but we're going to find out there at the same point. But yeah, that's gonna be something that's gonna be pretty big next year. Again, I hate it for the people at Road America, but it's gonna be interesting. I don't think we're gonna make it out to cover that race. I think it's one we'll see. We're kind of a lot of the traveling that we're doing lately for a lot of my trackside coverage. We're kind of staying pretty close to home. Gas prices and everything. I'm sure I mean they're affecting everybody, but that's kind of what we're looking at on our end. If we do anything out of venue, it would be nice to do something. I mean, if we do something like that, it's going to be out of our immediate area. I'd like it to be a really big event, and I've no doubt this is going to be a big event. And I like that they're going to have support series for it, unlike what the Clash had, where they're going to bring like IMSA and stuff like out there. So I think that'll be pretty cool. But I'm not sure exactly what's going to be the situation on that. Um, as speaking of that, but speaking of the support series, of course, there was also the news this week about the possibility of electric cars racing in NASCAR next year. This being big news, and apparently the targeted goal, at least according to the leaked documents, was that it was going to be the Clash. That they were going to have it as a support race. On at face value, I'll say that the Clash does need to have a support event. I think if you're going to make it a 2 day event instead of just cramming everything into one day, especially like one half day where the race is over before it gets dark, you got to have at least one support event out there. And it's a flexible enough track that you can make it a real gimmicky thing. You can have them race bicycles or whatever. And doing electric cars, okay, if you want to do something silly like that, I think that's fine. I don't think, as I said the other day, I don't think that electric cars are sustainable commercially. I don't think they're the way everything's going. I think that, trying to get the lithium for batteries and trying to, recycle them in an environmentally healthy way is a lot more difficult than just working with fossil fuels that we already have and the technology that we already have and, producing it the way we do. Not to mention the fact that, here, especially, out here where we always have situations with power outages and rolling blackouts and things of that nature, an increased burden on the electrical grid doesn't sound like something I'm too positive about. Maybe at some point those problems all get solved, but I think the technology as it stands right now isn't really the best at that point. Maybe we'll find something out though. I mean, maybe we'll find something interesting in the racing itself. I'm intrigued that this 12 car field thing they're looking at with 4 cars per OEM, and getting other drivers out there. I don't know if they're literally dropping an electric motor into the current next gen car or if they're looking at doing a completely different car. I had assumed in my mind, I was picturing a different car, maybe something that was scaled down, kind of like that. But not sure if that's really going to be the situation. In terms of that, though, that is a race I am still looking on covering, which would be the Clash next year. I really enjoyed doing the Clash last year. I thought they had a great turnout for it. I think they did need to. I think there's are a lot of things they needed to fix, and I'm hopeful they're going to be fixed next year. First and foremost, they have to make sure the track is open the entire day, both days. They need to make sure fans can get in there and see practice and buy their merch and buy their food and and do everything like that. I think the problem was when they compressed it all into Sunday, they had like a really really brief qualifying session on Saturday night, and then that was over with. I mean, the visuals were cool, but it was over in an instant, like a blink of an eye. And then you have the actual race the next day. And then there was people running around, and then people they didn't get to see the concerts, or they weren't able to get food, or the bathrooms were kind of getting overused and stuff like that. It just became kind of a mess, and I think people were kind of rushing from one place to the other, and that was unfortunate. You really had to kind of pick where to be. And in media, I'm used to that because I'm used to being like, okay, I know there's gonna be some things I'll miss by doing this. For example, like trying to get over the garage area, which is pretty far from where the actual track is. But that shouldn't be the experience for the fans. They should be able to have enough time to see the race, to see the concerts, to get their food, to buy their merch, to do all that. Have the race be later in the day, have it be at night, I think, with the visuals of the torch, and I think that would be awesome. And use the rest of the day to have either a support event if you want to see it or not, get your bearings to where the seats are, get your food, get all that. That would have been a better way to do it. And then if you're really hardcore, have the Saturday day open as well, where you can be in there, you can see qualifying, you can see practice. That would be great. I think that's where they need to really kind of work with that. But I'm not really crazy about the electric cars, but if there is a curiosity, if they're just like something else out there they're going to do, I know that I'm sure with the trajectory that NASCAR is on, they feel the need that they have to be doing this. That's where I think I kind of take issue with it a bit. Um, I know that there's Formula E. I know there's different things that are going on with Formula One over there, but they're always the cutting edge. Is NASCAR in that same category? I mean, we're not seeing IMS. I mean, I guess there's other things going on in sports cars and hyper cars and stuff like that. I was about to say we're seeing IMSA doing it, but I guess we really are seeing it in sports car racing and everything, and 24 hours of Le Mans and everything too. So maybe it is inevitable, but that it kind of trickles back down to NASCAR this way, which is again, I don't feel as opposed to it as I anticipated I would be, because if they're creating like its own standalone series, first of all, from the standpoint of somebody here that follows the last place finishers, they're going to have to fall out for some reason. Is it going to be a dead battery every time? Probably not. Is it going to be an accident? Or is it going to be some other thing? Is it going to be some other technology to figure out? If this does go through, what I hope NASCAR does is what they should have done with the Clash last year and really make it an event where you're able to really see and understand the new technology they're bringing into the sport. I really wish that they had like a sample next gen car out there for fans to see, to like climb into, to kind of, poke and prod at, to try to take the wheels off of it. Like maybe put it on jack stands or something safer. So, of course, you don't have that issue, and have people like take the wheels off, or really see the unique challenges of it. Because I think it is just such a major departure from the cars we already had. I think what they should do with this next year, if they're going to do the electric cars, they should treat it the same way. They should have it on display and say, look, here's the future, or what we think is going to be a part of our future in some sense of the sport. And, get familiar with it. See it up close, so that it's not just, something from the nosebleed seats and you're seeing it on the track. It's something you can actually see, you can touch, and things like that. I think that would be great. And especially, and it's such a nice complex. I think NASCAR didn't anticipate what they had at their disposal when they did the Clash this year, because it is a large complex, and it surprised me too. I'd never been to Exposition Park either, but you got the Coliseum, you have this big park area, you have these museums. It's all like in the downtown section there. I think it's interesting. I think it would be really, it'd be cool to see. And if they want to do this as just kind of a funhouse thing there, and it's on the side, and it's just a curiosity, I don't have a problem with it, because it's going to be just some other thing that I could do, last place deals with. Do I think it's going to be a sustainable replacement for the Cup Series? No, I don't think so. I think the element of the noise of the cars, that traditional aspect of it, there needs to be something there. I mean, the cars they have so much technology in them already. I mean, they have the computerized rearview mirrors at this point. This may seem like just the next logical step, but a fully electric car, I'm not sure about that. I think that just seems like a bridge too far at this point. And maybe things change, and maybe that would be less of an issue, but that would be a different one to kind of look at there too. But yeah, that's a recipe for a thoroughly destroyed race EV given NASCAR fans. Well, yeah, you write it off. I'm not counting on you actually running this. Show cars. I mean, they do show car displays all the time. Just something like that. But yeah, I'm not sure. Again, they're gonna do it. I mean, you could have a strong opinion one way or the other. They're gonna do it. I mean, so now it's a matter of like, okay, well, how are they gonna do it, and what's the best way to maximize what they're doing with it? That's where I think that the discussion kind of needs to shift at this point. Now I know these are just leaked documents; nothing's been confirmed, but that's going to be a different thing that they need to look at. And NASCAR really needs to consider, yeah, what are the basic elements that just need to be there. I used to think that the numbers in the middle of the door was a big thing that needed to be there, but I'm getting used to where they are. I still think there's some schemes that look absolutely awful with the numbers moved forward. Alex Bowman's, first and foremost, the logo on the side is entirely too big. I think the Hendrick ones in general all pretty mediocre, which is sad because they're one of the top teams, and one of them just won the race today. So you got that too, but I don't know. Oh, they're gonna show up with sledgehammers and blowtorches. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's probably it too. But I was just thinking just the normal, yeah, wear and tear. But I don't know. I don't know. But I think just keep it a curiosity. Don't say that you're replacing it. I think that's going to be insane. I think they would be foolish to kind of go an opposite direction from what makes them successful. This is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be 100% neat. It's not supposed to be 100% polished. It's not meant to be 100% Hollywood. I mean, that's why it's not all on the West Coast. I mean, it's got to have some element of what made it what it is. And I think gasoline, right, gasoline engines and these cars sound louder than ever. People love it. I know there were questions about if they needed to run mufflers on these cars. I mean, I didn't think it was too loud at the Clash. I mean, I don't think it damaged my hearing too much. I was sitting down like right in front of them, off of turns. It was 1 and 2. I was on that side of it, where the torch was there. It was perfectly comfortable. I mean, I do have my earplugs in, but it wasn't any louder than anything else. It wasn't. We weren't reaching like drag racing noises there, but I think that would be another one to certainly look at too. Yeah, the Stewart Haas cars look good. I think the Trackhouse ones look fine too, especially the '99 car. And now the one car finally has some decent paint schemes. I know I've let off on that, but I think the Express the express scheme that he ran today in the one car. I think that looked really nice. Um, it kind of reminds me of that Freightliner, that Tron car that I know has been run a couple of times here as well. Michael Jensen, thank you for the super chat there. Just joined the stream. Before I check Google, what happened? I went to dinner right after the checkered flag. Oh dear, Michael, do I have news for you? Do I have news for you? So again, for Michael and anybody else new coming in here, we did get the results of post-race technical inspection now about an hour ago here, that both Denny Hamlin, your race winner today in the FedEx Toyota, and Kyle Busch, your second place finisher in the M&M sponsored car from the M&M's Fan Appreciation 400, were both disqualified for infractions relating to the front fascia. Indications seem to be that there was something stuck on the front of the grill. Details are not ongoing with this, at least from what I've seen last time checking social media, because these are appealable disqualifications. Regardless, that has dropped the two drivers to the last two spots in the field. Apparently, the first time from NASCAR Man's research since 1960 with 60 or 61 with Emmanuel Zervakis that the race winner was disqualified. Probably the first time since 1955 that the top two drivers were disqualified, and the first time since 1960 World 600 that two or more drivers were disqualified and classified in the last two spots. So a very what seemed at the first blush to be a pretty ordinary last place battle, the wreck with Josh Bilicki on lap 35, has turned into a very historic last place situation just after the double disqualification in the Xfinity Series last week with Landon Castle and Noah Gragson from the top five. Now the race winner and the second place finisher, which has now handed Chase Elliott his fourth win of the season, a tremendous momentum swing, I think you'd have to say, especially from the Gibbs team. It's now improved Ty Gibbs to a 16th place finish in his Cup Series debut, pending, of course, the results of any possible switchback there in inspection, and just a complete bizarre situation. So yeah, that's the news we have on that end there. So a very bizarre way to conclude the Pocono weekend and heading into Indianapolis in IRP weekend starting this next Friday. So yeah, that's about all I have on the top three. We talked about the notes from the other bit of news stories. We talked about the top three series here tonight. I've had quite an eventful show here. If you guys like to stick around for a little bit of trivia, we'll do that for a lot of our longtime shows here. I anticipate we probably have some new viewers in here, and thank you so much for sticking around. We're going to have 106 people in here sticking around here to talk about what happened at Pocono today. But we got our late 1990s Trivial Pursuit NASCAR deal. I do some trivia questions here, kind of wind up the show, and we do some other discussions here about everything. So we'll certainly talk about that as well. If you guys have any other questions from the weekend or any topics I didn't talk about, go ahead and drop it in the chat there. It doesn't have to be a super chat, but if you want to do that, that's cool. All of that's in there, and we'll go from there. So first and foremost, we have multiple categories, this Trivial Pursuit thing. Here are the categories: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Go ahead and mention in the chat which category you would like here. Again, those categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are those categories. They did not mention penalty points, Michael. Yeah, it looks like they just revoked the points that they got from the race. We'll see if there's any other infractions on that. Let's see. Okay, Philip Bailey, I'm seeing your posting from Pockers there. NASCAR says the issues weren't found in pre-race tech because they don't take the wrap off during pre-race tech. Taking the wrap off in certain places is part of post-race tech. Okay, well, okay, that explains another part of it. So we'll see. I guess, yeah, looking under the wrap. I guess that would be the issue with that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Alrighty, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got, excuse me, got a few categories for NASCAR here. Looks like NASCAR is kind of the leader. I see what you're saying there, RD Fox. I don't think we've done this category that much. It might end up being the one we end up doing here for tonight. Alrighty, so let's do the NASCAR category here to wrap up the show here for this evening. Alrighty, For those again that are new to the show here, we don't really do don't look up these answers online. Just go ahead and just chime into the chat as soon as you like on that. We just do this for fun. So we'll jump into this here for the segment. First question: how many of 1997's top 10 NASCAR Winston Cup drivers piloted Fords? Looking for a number here. How many of 1997's top 10 NASCAR Winston Cup drivers piloted Fords? That is the question. Maybe we'll get some DQ trivia. We might. We might. It's certainly possible. Marco Andretti finishing an SRX race with a broken wrist and putting an X-ray on Twitter. Wasn't there an issue with that too? Yeah, first of all, kudos to Andretti. That's some guts there. But did they have an issue with the points standings where Newman had more points? Pocono's email just sent me an updated email. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sometimes they got to work overtime to handle these disqualifications, and it's definitely another case here. It's going to be a bit of a later evening, but hopefully not too bad. I think we got a good start on the article here, and we'll just add another paragraph to it and kind of look a little bit more at these statistics here as they continue to come in. Applaud NASCAR Man and others that are discussing this because it's making it much easier to kind of digest all that here as well. How many of 1997's top 10 NASCAR Winston Cup drivers piloted Fords? The answer is 5. 5. Kevin Love, looks like you were the first one on there, and you were the first one to get it right. 5 is indeed the answer. So there you go. All right, next question. What driver became NASCAR's first treasurer in 1948? We're digging way back in history here. What driver became NASCAR's first treasurer in 1948? There you go. What driver became NASCAR's first treasurer in 1948? It was resolved. Jeff Glugg. Okay, right on. Thank you, Irvin. Something about like they had bonus points, they didn't credit him or something. Yeah, I'll take a look at his word there if he was covering that too. Yeah, Anthony Alfredo hitting it on the head here. Today shows how every spot matters. The battle for third and fourth ultimately ended up being the race for the win. There you go. You just never know. Just never know. NASCAR found the front fascia issues with the 11 and 18 cars after taking the wrap off the cars. This was again. I know you guys were tweeting that earlier there too, but yeah, I'll go ahead and retweet that there as well. Alrighty. What driver became NASCAR's first treasurer in 1948? That is the question. Okay, I guess it's Jim Roper, Lee Petty, Bob Flock, Junior Johnson, Skip, Tim Flock, Mr. Moneybags. I don't know. Probably some driver we never heard of. Yeah, probably. Fireball Roberts, Curtis Turner, Bill Rexford. Not a damn clue. Like it, Chips Never. I thought you were starting to give me obscure soccer player names or hockey players like Vista Metal usually does. But I like that. Not a damn clue. What driver became NASCAR's first treasurer in 1948? The answer is Marshall Teague. Marshall Teague is the correct answer. I believe NASCAR Man did a video on his career as well. Marshall Teague is the correct answer. Alrighty, next question. What make of car won the first NASCAR Winston Cup Series race at Talladega? What make of car won the first NASCAR Winston Cup Series race at Talladega? Yeah, Marshall Teague was the correct answer. Yeah, Marshall Teague. Yeah, a little bit kind of a surprising answer. But again, the next question here: what make of car won the first NASCAR Winston Cup Series race at Talladega? Got several guesses for Dodge. I'm seeing a lot of Dodges here. And one Chevy. And now Dodge. And now Chevy. Okay, here we go. What make of car won the first NASCAR Winston Cup Series race at Talladega? The answer is indeed the Dodge. Dodge different. Dodge. Alrighty. Okay, next question here, folks. What driver won the pole in 14 NASCAR Winston Cup events of the 1980 season? What driver won the pole in 14 NASCAR Winston Cup events of the 1980 season? Does IRP deserve a cup date, Andrew Bremer? I think it would be great if they did. I think it puts on a great show. I I'm not sure if I would do it at the cost of the lower series, though. I mean, it's a really cool venue. Um, I think it's still kind of cool keeping it in the Truck Series, and I'd like to see the Xfinity Series go back there. The Xfinity Series is the one that has no business being at the Indianapolis track. That's what needs to change. I think a lot of the problems that Indy has with its NASCAR weekend. I mean, there's a lot of things you can point at. Certainly the tire thing in 2008. Certainly, things of that nature. But, um, I think the bigger problem was bringing the Xfinity Series there because that diluted the remaining significance to the Brickyard 400, and the fact that it just didn't have very good races there. They tried everything to make it more competitive and have a last lap finish, and nobody knows where that Casey Kane race came from in there. I think you could probably put on a pretty good show there now with the next gen car, but we'll see. What driver won the pole in 14 NASCAR Winston Cup events of the 1980 season? And the answer is Cale Yarborough. They call him Cale. Cale Yarborough. I have not seen the Slap Shoes video on Boyer. I bookmarked it. I haven't. It's on my list of things to watch. Still getting through my playlist here pretty soon, but it sounds interesting. I know he was working on that back when he had that unfortunate um, situation there after Gateway, and I certainly hope he's doing all right too. Feels like I'm saying that more and more with a lot of people, and that troubles me. But fingers crossed there. Cale Yarborough is indeed the correct answer. And a few of you got that. Blake Thiemann, you got it. Maserati 9 as well. There you go. All right, we'll probably do. It's been a long show here tonight. Oh, wow, we're up to 2.5 hours here. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying in here. I know it turned into quite the adventure tonight. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I certainly have as well, despite my pick getting disqualified live on stream. So that's a lot of fun, but that happens. Let's see here. This is a good question. This is a good question. This is a good manufacturer question. Last question for the evening, folks. How many NASCAR Winston Cup races have been won by Studebakers? Think about that one. Looking for a number here, folks. How many NASCAR Winston Cup races have been won by Studebakers? Last question for the evening. Slapshoe's video is really good. Okay, look forward to seeing it. I do intend to. It's one of the channels that happy to check out his stuff there. The stream broke news. There you go. Well, hey, I certainly wasn't the first one to see it. I appreciate you guys for staying on top of it. I was thinking about like checking Pockrus's page at some point. I don't know. It wasn't really at that point, but I kind of lost track of time even before that. I was just kind of thinking of the Truck Series coverage there at that point. So, yeah. How many NASCAR Winston Cup races have been won by Studebakers? Is our last question for the evening. How many? We got 3 and 19 and 12 and 28 and 4. We're all over the place. I only know their first win came at the Columbia Speedway. Well, there you go. How many NASCAR Winston Cup races have been won by Studebakers is the question. Alrighty. I'm so glad I didn't cut off the stream before before the disqualification news came in there. Had that happen last year, that was embarrassing. So this one certainly. I mean, I did have audio issues, and though if you're watching this video now, I'm sorry about that because the beginning of the video, all kinds of problems. But yeah, certainly worth it here to be on when the news broke on that. So again, one more time, how many NASCAR Winston Cup races have been won by Studebakers? And the answer is three. Three is the correct answer. Beast of Metal, you got it. And I think you were the first one to get it. There you go. Three is the correct answer. I think you're the only one to get it. RD Fox, you guessed pie. You were close. All over it. Three wins by Studebaker in the NASCAR Cup Series. So that will do it for us tonight, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in for our extended show tonight with a bit of extra last place news here with a couple of drivers disqualified again. One more time, Josh Bilicki was going to be your last place finisher of the race today. A little over an hour ago, we had news that both race winner Denny Hamlin and second place finisher Kyle Busch disqualified for an issue with a front fascia, classified in the last two positions in the field, which gives Kyle Busch the last place run, his first of the year, his first since New Hampshire last year, and keeps Josh Bilicki at only one last place finish in his career. And also the first last place run for the number 18 and his M&M sponsorship at Pocono since his first last place run with Gibbs and M&M's at Pocono in 2008. One of the other interesting statistics here to come up with that. So interesting weekend. I think it's going to be another interesting week of news coming up here. In the meantime, the website is lastcar.info. Twitter is at lastcaronbrock. Patreon is patreon.com/lastcaronbrock if you're interested in that. And our next show is going to be after the Indianapolis weekend, which will be after both the Truck Series race at IRP and the Indy Road Course at the Xfinity and the Cup Series. This weekend also is Last Bro's birthday. So maybe end up being a bit of either a shorter show, or we'll figure something else out with the timing there. We'll jump into that and we'll go from there. So that'll be it for the show here tonight. So take care, everyone. I'll see you next week. And remember, as today certainly shows you, sometimes last happens.